Good morning, everybody. Cass Kettner from Tableau. I'm an account executive here in Michigan. Fun fact, we actually have a fully Michigan-based team here today. I'll be going through the agenda, introducing them each in turn. But you wandered into the beautiful science of data visualization and visual analytics with Tableau. We have a pretty packed agenda today, going over the science of data visualization with Joe O'Brien, who's our sales consulting manager here in Michigan. Joe, wave your hand and say hi. We're going to take a quick break after that, after which Kevin Imig back there in the right there will be walking through a hands-on workshop, the quickest way to get started with Tableau. Kevin will follow that up with walking through our Tableau Prep demo. Kevin will introduce what Tableau Prep is, our data preparation application as part of our platform. Followed by Joe talking through extensions with Tableau, how to make Tableau into almost a fully functional application. And David Spezia, one of our strategic sales consultants here in Michigan, will be going through big data use cases for us as well. Now, how many of you in the room are new to Tableau completely? Just raise your hand, don't be shy. David, that's a good sign. Okay, so we have a mix of new people to Tableau. So for those of you that are new to Tableau, I want you to kind of hopefully feel inspired to think differently about how you approach your analytics. Maybe differently with Tableau or other applications that you might be using even. For those of you that have experience with Tableau, hopefully you feel a bit more informed with the use cases that we have, and maybe for some of the content, the newer updates that have come to Tableau just in the past couple of months here. After which, if you feel inspired to do anything with Tableau, just know that everything that we're showing here is available on the website. You can go out and grab a trial of the software and evaluate it on your own data. With that said, I'm going to pass it over to Joe O'Brien to get us started on the science behind data visualization.
Beautiful science of data visualization. All right. Everybody hear me okay? Sound good? All right. Again, my name's Joe O'Brien, and I'm a customer consulting manager here at Tableau. I'm one of the many local people here. I'm actually just a couple hours west east of here, out of Novi. I chose this particular presentation for this talk track today because, in a big data conference like this, you're going to hear a lot of things like, competing on data, competing on analytics, data is the next corporate currency, all the buzz phrases, and it's all very appropriate, right? It's all really good stuff that you hear coming out that we're trying to do in our companies every day. But the point of what I want to talk about today is if we can't effectively communicate the message behind the data to our audience, to our customers, to all of our stakeholders, then I think we're wasting a huge opportunity of getting value from that data underneath. So the science of data visualization is here to help us, right? It's here to help us communicate that message of all of the data that we have, that we collect, that we manage, and that we analyze every day. So that's going to kind of be my focus for the next 30 minutes or so. And I'm going to spend for the first time, I'm going to actually take you through one of my favorite examples of how the science of data visualization can, in using some of the basic principles, can create and recreate a very impactful message. So this is the first example I wanted to show you on how we can kind of create and recreate a message. This is from the South China Morning Post. It's by a gentleman named Simon Scar, who is actually now the head of infographics at Reuters. So a lot of the really cool infographics that you see from all the things that Reuters distributes to is from a gentleman named Simon Scar, his people. But the important thing about this is he's using three real basic principles of data visualization. Number one is the color, right? So the color really evokes kind of what his message is here, right? The color red. Number two is the orientation, right? He's actually only using, in this case, just a classic bar graph, right? But he's orienting it in an unconventional way, going down. So it has a very specific shape to the graph to kind of get his message across. Number three is the title, right? Without the title, you can look at the title and pretty much know what the message he's trying to say even without looking at the numbers, right? But can we take those three elements, the orientation, the title, and the color, and without changing the data, completely change the message. Right? Some of the basic principles of data visualization. So the first thing we want to do is actually change the orientation. Right? And so now we have starting to tell a very different story, right? At least initially in our head, we're actually seeing across the timeline a decline in deaths over time, right? You have the secular violence in the middle there, but our brain tells us that there's a decline, and it almost looks like a positive story, right? It'd be great if it was zero, right? But we see a decline over the timeline. The next thing we want to do is change the color, right? Kind of get rid of that evocation of blood. Right? Change the color, color is very impactful in our visualizations, obviously. And the third thing we'd want to do is perhaps change the title. Right? So now we've changed without actually changing any of the data. Right? Without actually even changing any of the graph types. Right? We still have a bar chart. We still have a title. We still have just basic colors. We've completely changed the message. Right? And I think this is incredible, and this is really some of the basic things. This is some of the basic things, using just some basic principles of data visualization, how we can change, create, and just recreate a very impactful message. So I'm going to start, we'll go through some of the science, right? So the brain, we start to think about the brain and how the brain interprets data, right? The light goes into the eye, into the visual cortex. It's interpreted by the brain and filtered out filtered to the rest of the brain that needs to know. And this happens millions of times a day, and it's been happening for millions of years, right? And it's evolved from basic fight or flight to now the amazing amount of data that comes at us every day, this system is able to interpret that data for us. I'm going to start with just a quick example of some of the basic principles of data visualization at work. Number one, kind of a classic example, is can we count how many 9s there are on this graphic? Right? I won't make you go through and count them all, but we all have our own techniques, right? We're going to go up and down the columns, we're going to go across the rows, we're going to start grouping them. But if I do something like this, it makes it a lot easier, right? And this is not rocket science, if you will. Why? But the fact that these are colored red, or a color at all, is one of the basic principles of data visualization. Color, in and of itself, isn't just because it comes out and it shows us and we're able to be more aware of it. But color is one of the basic pre-attentive attributes that our brain sees. A pre-attentive attribute is one that our brain is able to interpret before we're consciously aware of it. There's no conscious action on our part that's needed to interpret that color, right? And color isn't the only one, right? You see you're using these are the types of things that, if you use Tableau, these are the types of things, the foundational principle upon which Tableau is built, is these basic pre-attentive visual attributes. Color isn't even the strongest one. I think from a human visual perception, position is actually the strongest one, which is why we have bar charts and scatter plots and things like that are very powerful. But there are other ones, like hue and enclosure, width and length, which is why we circle things when we take notes. Or on intensity, we highlight things in our books as students. These are the things that come out to us. These are the things that we don't need any conscious action on our part. But they're a very big part of designing visuals so that people can interpret the appropriate message. But there's also why we can't see Waldo, right? Waldo doesn't have any pre-attentive attributes that separates him from the environment around him. There's no way to distinguish him by height or color or intensity or position, right? But our job is to create clarity, right? Our job is to create not confusion but clarity. So our Where's Waldo probably has to look something like this as data visualization people, which is no fun, right? But gives you an idea of some of the basic principles of data visualization at work here, and then how it can work against us in kind of an everyday life. I was putting this together, and my son told me it'd be really mean if I didn't show people where Waldo is. So Waldo's right there. Enclosure. So when we visualize things, when we see things with our eyes and let our brain interpret that data, we're actually able to see things that even some of the hard sciences of statistics aren't able to show us. Anybody recognize these set of four numbers? Any statisticians or mathematicians in the room? This is called Anscombe's quartet. This is a classic set of 4 numbers, and Anscombe was a British scientist in the 70s, I believe, who used this set of 4 numbers to talk about the importance of, in his world, charting data, or in our world today, visualizing data, but also in the importance of outliers in statistical analysis. So the important thing of these 4 numbers of Anscombe's quartet is each one of these, the set of 4 numbers, has almost identical statistical properties, right? The same means, the same variances, the same correlations, and there's a number of other statistical properties that are identical about them. So you would think that these set of 4 numbers are pretty much represent exactly the same set of things, if you will. But if you go back to what he was trying to demonstrate, and you actually graph this data, as he would say, or visualize this data, you can see it's very different. So group 1, and group 2, and group 3, and group 4. So although they have identical statistical properties, very different things when you visualize them. So the point is that we have all these things like machine learning and AI and all the great statistical things that are happening, and these are very important, doing great things in our industry today. But you can't discount the importance of human visual perception in helping to push your message across. Right? So it's very important. So we have some basic scientific principles of data visualization, but we work in not scientific principles, we work with real data every day. How do we take the data that we have in our data lakes, our data swamps, our spreadsheets, and how do we take them and use these basic visual principles and encode our data with these basic elements? So I'm going to use, I see someone actually demonstrate something like this with Star Trek data, but I have to admit I've never seen an episode of Star Trek, which puts me way outside the nerd category maybe, but or at least makes me older. But Game of Thrones, I'll use some data from Game of Thrones to talk about how to encode that data in our databases using some of these basic principles. So a gross oversimplification of the data that we work with every day. We have kind of 3 basic types. Nominal, which are things, just things that we have in our databases, nothing we're going to measure or order. Then we have ordinal data, that's things that are going to be put in a particular order, right? Seasons, days of the week, numbers, right? And then quantitative data, those are the things that we're used to working with every day. Those are the things that we measure every day, right? That we most recognize when we talk about analytics. So what I did is I took some data from IMDb, which is the movie database, and got fan ratings for each of the individual seasons, and threw it into Tableau and kind of see what would happen. So the first thing you see is just the nominal data. These are the episode names. Not a whole lot you can do with that, right? Maybe you can sort them, but they're just things, nominal data. And those are the things, we have lots of that kind of thing in our own databases. But then we have our individual seasons. We can encode ordinal data with color. Right? So kind of taking your first principle, one of your basic principles of data visualization, and encoding our ordinal data in such a way that you can see them, and without having any real time to have to think about it, we can see very quickly there's separation between these seasons. I only have seasons 1 through 7, so no spoilers. We can also use position, right? So we've kind of taken these and put them on a timeline, and not just taking color, so I'm using both color and position for the individual seasons. Third thing, next I start to get to the more interesting part of it, right? So now you start talking about quantitative data. Quantitative data is going to be looked at over by position in most cases, right? Because I said that's the kind of from basic human perceptions, position is probably the strongest one. So our quantitative data, for the most part, is going to be represented by position in some graphic. And so we have seasons 1 through 7 represented by position, and then the vertical axis is the rating of each individual season, the average rating for each individual episode. Right. So you start to get an idea of what a piece of software like Tableau, this is kind of the basic principle of Tableau, is taking the data that we work with every day, connecting to it, using some basic data visualization principles, and encoding that data so that we can make the best of the message that comes across. And then we start to get insight, right? We start to see what is the lowest ranked episode You start to hear things like utter crap, I guess, very poorly done. So you start to see those in the text. And then you see the greatest, the most highly rated episode, and you see some people that are way over the top, looking like involved my emotions to the point that I actually cried out at the ending, like, good Lord, right? So, Game of Thrones people. So I'm actually a couple seasons behind, just to give you an idea of, taking some basic things and using some very basic principles of data visualization to get a message across to your audience. So that's a little bit about the science of data visualization. You kind of take the way the brain processes information. You look at some pre-attentive attributes and then how you encode those attributes that are in our own databases. And that gives you data visualization, right? And data visualization gives you charts and it gives you graphs. And a lot of people in my industry, and I've been in this industry 22 years now, believe it or not, would have you believe that that's kind of the start and the end of it. You've got your dashboard, that's the end of your analytic process. But I'm here to tell you it really isn't. If you're using dashboards every day, you're producing them for people, or people are consuming your work, if you're producing those dashboards for other people, that has to be just the start of the analytic process, right? You're answering anticipated questions. Those are questions that you've drawn up through some requirements. In all those, you can have dashboards with all the flexibility in the world, with all the prompts and all the bells and whistles, but in the end, it's answering anticipated questions. What are my sales for the month? What are my sales to quota? What are my receivables today? What are my payables today? Those are dashboards that we produce every day. But if you want to really get to the value of taking all the data that's within your organization and really getting value out of all the data that we collect and that we manage and that we analyze, going from dashboards, from data visualization, and adding into it visual analytics is really what brings value to your organization. And visual analytics is something completely different, right? Visual analytics, as opposed to dashboards, is about ad hoc analysis. It's about iterating through your data, asking the what, and the why, and the why, and the why again. This is a squiggle that I think best represents, or at least a very good representation of the combination of dashboarding and visual analytics. This is actually in the world of design, this is called the process of design squiggle by Damian Newman. It's got a much more interesting history than you would think a squiggle would have. So if you Google it, it's pretty interesting. But it really represents what we're talking about here, I think, very well. Because if we connect the data over on the left-hand side over here, my right, your left, when we connect the data, we don't exactly know, even though we might have some requirements of what we have to produce in the end, we don't exactly know where we're going to go and where's the data going to take us. We want to be able to iterate through it and add more data to our analysis, right? Eventually, we'll start to hone in on our message, right? And eventually get to the dashboard that we were maybe asked to produce. But not without having it already be informed, right, by all of the iteration and all of the adding of more data and more context to my analysis. Because if we're over here today in 2018, almost 2019 now, and all we're really doing is producing dashboards, frankly, I think that's pretty disappointing. We've been doing that for a long time, right? We've been doing that for 20, 25 years, producing dashboards. They're prettier today. They're more interactive today. But in the end, we're still just answering anticipated questions, right? Questions that we've been asked to answer. When you add that visual analytics process, the ability to iterate through my data, it really adds an incredible amount of value to your entire analytic process. So a quick example of this, of the power of iteration. Anybody, for Tableau people, anybody have heard of Makeover Monday? Well, Makeover Monday is part of the Tableau community, and some of the leaders of the Tableau community will put out a data set and a quick visualization of that data set. And ask the community, and thousands of people participate in this every week, ask the community to remake it, make it over. Can you change the message? Can you enhance the message? Is there something in it that we haven't anticipated? And so one of my colleagues put together a demonstration of this, of what that looks like, and maybe an hour's worth of, I'll go here. So every time you change the screen, take a snapshot. And so this is representative of about an hour worth of iterating through the data on a Makeover Monday to see if there's something that they can uncover on the data that wasn't uncovered in the original offer. So this kind of really represents that power of iteration. And this takes about an hour's worth, takes about a minute and a half or so, so I won't go through the whole thing. But the power of being able to change your perspective. And then you end up with something like this. This was his submission for Makeover Monday. Evokes kind of and I swear we have some positive data in our databases, some here at Tableau, but apparently not in my presentations today. So, but you know, it gives you an idea of being able to iterate through your data and the importance of that to get the message, the appropriate message. So, I've got just a couple of minutes. I'm going to maybe take you through a live example of what we call that. This is entitled The Beautiful Science of Data Visualization. So I'm going to take you through a quick demonstration of that kind of curiosity in action, if you will. So I'll start with the data that I have is actually from the Kepler telescope. And you know, we all kind of became amateur astronomers back, was it last summer, during the, or summer ago during the solar eclipse. Kepler's telescope is an amazing thing, right? So this is a publicly funded NASA project. And the Kepler telescope spends all of its time essentially looking for exoplanets. Planets in faraway galaxies that could possibly have sustained life billions of years in the past, or maybe sometime in the future. And those are called Goldilocks planets. Planets that are not too big, and not too small, and not too hot, and not too cold, Goldilocks planets. But it does this by looking at far off into the sky and looking at very slight changes in the light signatures. And when it sees a light signature change, it infers that, well, that's a planet rotating around a distant star, its own sun. So this is data that you can download, right? And so we downloaded some of this data from the NASA site, and let's see what we can do with it. So we have all of our Kepler objects. Ultimately, those are what they refer to as the Kepler objects when it identifies something, called it a Kepler object. We can bring that right onto our sheet here. So we're working in Tableau, if you've never worked in Tableau before. So now we have a count of all of our individual Kepler objects, and I think we have about 7,300 marks. This is a couple years old. Kepler's actually found more since then. Scientists actually have a pretty interesting thing called disposition. And you can actually separate this, and again, harkening back to an earlier part of the presentation, we're going to use color. Right, to separate nominal things. Nominal things being our Kepler objects, we're going to use color to do some separation. And so they have, they can see which ones were false positives. They have several filters that they go through before obviously they are a confirmed Goldilocks planet, or at least an exoplanet. These are candidates that are going to go through for further analysis. And these are actually confirmed exoplanets, not confirmed Goldilocks planets. Some of them might be too big, some of them might be too small, or too hot or too cold. But these are the confirmed ones. I think now there's about 1,200 confirmed planets that they have with the project. They've had to repurpose Kepler a little bit, but it's still doing its job. So we have kind of that there are this many of them, right? And that's kind of interesting. But where are they in the sky, right? So we're going to keep asking questions. Where are they in the sky? If you remember back to your science classes, you have these things called declination and right ascension. And I've actually had to make myself notes here because I can never remember which one is which. But right ascension and that combination of declination and right ascension, you can kind of make a representation in a two-dimensional space of the three-dimensional sky, right? I'm going to edit this axis a little bit to make sure I have 360 degrees. And over here I have 90 degrees. And then we can really, now we're sure that we have a good representation of our sky. So here are all of the Kepler objects. Remember, it was pointing at a very small area in space. Let's zoom in on that a little bit. And pretty cool, right? So now we can see these individual objects and actually where they are located in space. And you look at it and you think, my God, space is, who knew that it was formed in such a grid shape like this, right? And you wonder why is it like that until you actually Google the Kepler thing, it looks like this. So, no big mystery. But I think it's pretty amazing that you can, with just a few strokes of your mouse, you can actually see where these things are in the night sky. But these are just the objects that are out there. They aren't objects that are Goldilocks. Right? So how do we find out whether they might be able to sustain life, or perhaps have sustained life? So we have another one. We have in this case a matrix, or excuse me, a scatter plot. We have our radius on our vertical axis and our orbit size, both of these relative to the Earth's. And here is our big average here, which doesn't help us a lot. So we can put our individual Kepler objects here, throw them out there, and we can see very quickly that our data is skewed. Most of our thing you can see kind of lie down here. Right? But you look at the size of this thing, the orbit size compared to Earth, it's actually a very small orbit and very hot. But the size of it is almost 4,000 times the size of Earth, right? Just amazing, the scale of things. But that doesn't help us in our analysis. So we know, at least we can, humans, or at least that we know of, can sustain about 1.75 the Earth's gravity. So the larger the planet, the more the gravity, the larger the object, the more the gravity. So we're going to say, well, let's bring this back down to, filter this down to about 1.75 times the Earth. So we start to filter these things out. So now these are at least the things that are small enough to not have such a crushing gravity that could sustain life. But the next question is, how hot are they? And these are the ones with very small orbit sizes, way over here. And so those are incredibly hot, right? Couldn't sustain life. These out here, they're getting colder, right? So we're encoding, again, something, in this case, a quantitative measure by color. Right? We're looking at it by the reds are very, very hot, the greens are very cold. And so we can start to filter these guys out as well. And little by little, as you get colder and colder, you start to see these things drop out. So I think this is in Kelvin, so I think we're like 275 degrees Kelvin, is about as high as we can sustain. Something like that. And so here are our individual Kepler objects that we think perhaps are not too big and not too small and not too hot and not too cold to be able to sustain life. And if you download the Goldilocks planets from NASA, here's our set of Goldilocks planets that have been confirmed by NASA. I can bring those onto my palette, and I can see that the only one that does not match NASA's confirmed exoplanet, Goldilocks planet, is this one. So since it doesn't agree with our data, just like any good statistician, we'll just exclude it. Right? So, it doesn't. So that's just a quick example of using that power of iteration. We're not scientists here. Nobody really can get that deep into what Kepler does with those individual objects. But just by downloading that data and asking some questions, it's amazing what you can understand and what you can infer about this world. So I'll wrap up with this. It's really not about saying, I have a time dimension, I'm going to make a line chart, right? That's dashboarding. Those are things we've been doing for 20, 25 years, probably more. If you really want to get value from the data in your organization, it's about iteration. It's about asking why, and the next why, and the next why, right? So if you can go beyond data visualization in your organization and start to adopt a process of visual analytics, I think you're going to get a lot more value about all the data in your organization. So with that, I'm going to introduce Kevin. And are we going to take a quick break, Kevin, or are we going to go over?
Just 5 minutes or enough
just to
for me to
set
get
up
up there.
All right, so folks, I appreciate your attention today. We're going to take just a couple of minutes to set up, and then we'll have Kevin Emmett come up and we'll do a hands-on workshop. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Joe. So while I'm doing this, Cass is going to come around and give everybody a little piece of paper that's going to have a login and a password on it so that you can participate in this hands-on portion. So everybody's connected to the internet, right?
I need a password. Wi-Fi password.
Do you have this?
No,
Oh, okay. The connection is BDI 2018, and the password is advance 18. And advance in uppercase. Can you spell that?
Yeah, I'll help you out.
Yeah. ADVANCE, the number 18.
It's right here in the program. It's okay. No, it's okay. That's right.
Hey, Joe, I need that mic.
Oh, sorry.
Voila. All right, how's everyone doing? Come on, I want energy. Come on, I know it's early, but let's go. Come on. All right, just real quick, and then we'll get going into this. My name is Kevin Emick, and I am the enterprise sales consultant for Tableau based here in Michigan. So what that means is I'm a tech guy that handles most all of our major accounts here in Michigan. So big ones would be our friends at Kellogg, Whirlpool, Ford, Dow, Stryker, Steelcase, right? So a lot of different companies, both here on the west side, but also just throughout the state itself. Okay, so in the next hour and a half or so, we're going to all produce something that looks like this. So we're going to create 4 individual visualizations, and then we're going to provide those together in a dashboard and take a look at how to do this and some value propositions and so forth. Now, how many of you have had some level of experience with Tableau? Okay, how many would say that you are an expert in Tableau?
There we go.
I would hope you raise your hand, Nolan.
No, that guy.
Okay, so some of this might be repeat for some of you, but also if we have time, and I think we might, I have some exercises that you can also do. So we'll go through all of this together, sort of be the follow the bouncing ball, explain what we're doing, how to do it, and then I have some questions at the end that we can pose, and you can go and just try your skill set that you just learned, and see if you can answer the question, what kind of visualization you might create, and we can make that very interactive and have some fun with that. Does that sound like a good idea? All right, so first thing, so this is what we're going to create. What I want everyone to do is open up a browser and go into online.tableau.com. All right, and when you get there, you're going to be presented with a login and password screen. Use the login and password that you find on this little piece of paper. So your login is going to be something like an email address, Tableau Quick plus a number at gmail.com, and then everybody has the same password. And can everyone hear me okay? All right. So throughout the session, I'm going to ask for thumbs up to make sure that everybody's on track and following along. So let's all practice. Thumbs up. So if by chance you need help, raise your hand. Joe will be back there, and we'll be able to assist. All right? And if you get behind, raise your hand. We don't want anybody to get, left behind. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and sign out. I'll sign in just like everybody else. So I'm going to come in as user 1. Do we have any other user 1s? Anybody got number 1? It doesn't matter. Okay. So first thing, with Tableau and our new role-based offering that we have, you have 3 different roles that you can play. One of them is, our lowest level is a viewer. A viewer can view any content that's already been created. So that dashboard I put up there, somebody would be able to come in and take a look at that. Then we have an explorer. An explorer is someone who can create or author new content. And then we have what's known as a creator. And a creator, somebody who can author and create new content, but they can also create new data sources. All right? So for today, we're all going to be that middle tier. We are all going to be explorers, able to create new content, but we have to use a data source that already exists out here in our environment. Okay? So that would be called a published data source. So, if everybody at this spot right here, thumbs up, we good? Everybody got it? All right, so what happened was a creator went and authored up a new data source for us. So they connected to some data and they threw it up there. Now, I do not want to use this data source stuff. So I'm going to have you navigate to a different location. What I want you to do is in the upper left, you see home. I want you to go ahead and click on home. And what I want you to do is you see where it says publish your work here. That is a project. We want to go into the project.
You don't have a home.
You don't have homes. You should have homes. I'm logged in as one of you. Okay, click on projects and get there.
Publish your work here?
Yep. All right, so does everybody have something that looks like this? All right, and then you want to find his data sources down here. We should be able to find that, and what we're looking for is this order sample superstore. Anybody who has done anything with Tableau, this is our standard demo data set. So is everybody at this location? Everybody has published your work here, went into data sources. So what I want you to do is go ahead and click on that data source. All right, so we have an Excel spreadsheet that's been published up for us to go ahead and start to analyze. Up here on the, next to the name, order sample store, you'll see where I'm highlighted, where it says create a new workload. Okay, go ahead and click that. All right, so Tableau has two ways of authoring visualizations. One is called Tableau Desktop, right? It's something you install on either your Mac or your Windows PC. And that has sort of been the product that's been around forever. Several years ago, we undertook the task of bringing that functionality of Tableau Desktop to the web. And so what we're going to be using today is web authoring using nothing more than your Internet Explorer, your Google Chrome, whatever browser you might be using. We are not quite 100% parity between the two. So desktop still has a little bit additional functionality, but each and every release that we come out with, every quarterly release, we continue to add more functionality to the web authoring portion. The whole idea is to bring that closer and closer into parity to where we're almost 100% in the near future. Okay, so a couple things that we're looking at here. One, on the left-hand side, we have our dimensions and our measures. So what Tableau has done is when we created this data set, it looked at the data and it says, okay, I can sort of break this data up into two buckets. I can put it into a measured bucket or dimensional bucket. So the difference being, a measure is something that you are going to aggregate. Min, max, sum, average, those types of functions against it. And a dimension is how you want to look at your data, sort of how you want to slice it. So an example, I have sales as my measure. I want to look at it by category, or look at it by subcategory, or state, or ship mode, or customer name, or something like that, right? So I have my measure that I want to look at. I want to look at it by something. So that's on the lower left-hand side, or on the left-hand side. You'll also notice that there are little icons, visual indicators of what that data looks like. So we can see if it has an ABC, that's string data. It's a combination of special characters, alphanumeric type data. If it has just a pound sign or hash sign, depending on your age, how you will describe that, that's null numbers. So we can see on a dimension we have row ID, and so the pound sign, it's all numbers. You might say, well, why wasn't that, if it's all numbers, why wasn't it down in the measures? It's because it's really a dimensional value, right? You're not going to aggregate row ID. Row ID is a dimension you might want to look at by, and so other IDs that you'll have there could be the same. You'll also notice as you look there, you'll find and see a round circle. It's a globe. Those are fields that Tableau can automatically geocode. City, state, postal code, zip code, congressional district, airport, and MSA, and some other ones like that. So we can automatically geocode those, so when you throw them on a map, it'll know what it is and it can display it correctly. And then finally, you'll see a icon. It's a calendar icon. Tableau understands date and date hierarchies automatically. You don't have to do anything to your data. The data that we're using is just a straight Excel spreadsheet, nothing special to it. It just has rows and columns of data. It has headers, right? No totals, no nothing like that, nothing special. It's just rows and columns of data. All right, so as we go through today, and I will say things like, okay, let's put this on color on the mark card or size on the mark card. What that refers to is right over to the left or to the right of your dimensions and measures, there's an area over here. You'll see it says marks. We call that the mark card. And so everything that appears over in this white space here as we move forward through this will be a mark. If it's a bar chart, the bars are going to be marks. If it's a line chart, the lines are going to be marks. If it's a map, objects on the map are going to be marks. All right? And then a couple other things we have at the top, columns and rows. We call this the column shelf and the row shelf. So I may say, drag this over to the row shelf, drag this over to the column shelf. And we're going to see how us just interacting with this as we double click, how Tableau automatically does things for us. And finally, I may say, and refer to something as a pill. We'll see as I drag things on and as things appear on these shelves, they look like a pill, sort of an oblong pill. And so I just sort of, for your edification, how we get the name pill. All right, so the scenario here is that we are all data analysts. We are working for an organization and we are thinking about buying another company. So we've been given some data, and our VP or somebody that we report to said, hey, can you analyze this data and give us some insight on their sales, the profitability, what products they're selling, where they're selling, how things have been going over the past history. And so that's our job. And our job is really to produce that dashboard that I showed early on so that we can give it to this person and they can do further analysis, right? They can do their own analytics against that, ask and answer their own questions. So my suggestion as you're beginning your journey with Tableau is to always start with the measure. And then we'll go and look at some dimensions on top of that. So the first thing I want you to do is locate sales down in your measures and just double click on it. And let's see what happens. So find sales down in measures, double click. And so we get a bar. And so what Tableau has said to the underlying data source, regardless if it was a cloud data source, a relational data source, a flat file, an Excel, Google Sheet, whatever it might be, hey, give me the sum of sales. And so that's what the data source provided back, and Tableau said, okay, I'll just throw a bar chart as a standard to begin the process. So if we hover over that, you'll notice that tooltips automatically start to be built out for you. So we have about $2.3 million worth of sales in this 10,000 record data set. But I want to know more, right? So I want to understand maybe some dimensionality to this data. So as I'm looking there, I see, okay, we have category, we have customers, we have some dates, subcategory, ship mode. Let's start off with category. Let's see how many categories of products are they selling here. So double click on category. All right? So now we've taken that single bar that was there, and it's now broken it up into 3, and we can see at the very bottom we have furniture, office supplies, and technology. All right, well, we're starting to get some analysis here. Now, as I look through the data, it appears to me that there's sort of a natural hierarchy, maybe between category and subcategory. So I want to create that hierarchy here in Tableau. So what I want you to do is take category and click on that, and I want you to drag that and drop it right on top of subcategory. All right, so just taking the category fill and drop it right on top of the subcategory. And what you should see is something like this, create the hierarchy. Now traditionally, if you've dealt with any kinds of products, maybe business objects, Cognos, MicroStrategies, those types of tools, this is something that would have to be coded in, or at least have to be done by more of an IT person. We're just business users here, right? We don't want to have to code anything, we don't want to have to do anything. So here we've just created our own hierarchy. So if you have that, just go ahead and say, you can change the name if you want, I'm just going to keep mine, and we'll say okay. A couple things to notice. One, on the left-hand side, we now can see that we have a new icon appear, and we can click into that, and we can see we now have a hierarchy of category and subcategory. In addition, if you're observant, up on the column shelf, we now see that we have a little plus sign appear in that category fill. Right? So now we have that ability to drill into this. So go ahead and click on that plus sign that's in the column shelf. All right, so now we're looking at category, or subcategory by category, and we're seeing the sales for each of those broken out. Now if we want to sort those, we can come over to the left axis, and right above the word sales, if you hover in there, you'll see that it's got a little icon for sorting. You can go ahead and click on that. So descending, ascending, back to default. So let's go ahead and maybe set it as descending here. Now I'm doing this for, let's say, a vice president. And I know that the vice president, she is probably not really interested in looking at some of, we'll call them small revenue producing items. These over here, this fasteners, right? If we hover into that, we can see that it's $3,000 worth of sales. That's pretty small. Same thing with labels, it's pretty small. So we have a couple choices here. One, we could just go ahead and remove those completely from our visualization. We just don't want to analyze them at all, right? They're so small, they're minuscule, we don't care. Or maybe what we want to do is logically group those together, so we can take these small items and sort of logically group them so we get a little bit larger grouping, if you will. So that's what we want to do. So what I want you to do is, down at the very bottom where you see the labels, I want you to click on, let's click on Art, and then holding your Shift key down, go ahead and select Fasteners. Now you need to make sure that you're clicking actually on the name and not the bar. All right? So Shift key, we have a multi-select now, right? We've selected those 4 items. Now you should have that little box that popped up. What I want you to do is find the little paper clip and go ahead and click on that paper clip. So what I've done is I've just done a logical grouping of different objects. Everybody follow what I did. Anybody not? Okay. So here's the really cool part about Tableau. As you're exploring, we have this thing in the upper left-hand corner called your undo button. And we can go right back to the beginning of our visualization. So I've just undid what I did. So what I want you to do again, locate Art, click on the label Art, find, and hold your shift key down and find maybe fasteners. Click on that. So now you've just multi-selected. And now you should have that box that popped up, and you want to look for the paperclip, which says group members. Cass, can you help this lady over here? Yeah, David. Sorry, David can do it too. Anybody else need help? Okay.
Need to get back to the right page. I got to move it out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sure.
Mine worksheet. I think that's where I ended up. That was it.
I wanted to sort of what we can click on it one more time. Slow network, and now what we want to do. Grouping is two ways that matter.
Security for the house.
We want we don't want to group by those three values. It's not what we do. We just want to group by art. So what we want to do now is click on the way header instead of right now we have all three properties. We just want one property. So click it on
And data source here.
hold on to
That. Hey, Cass?
yeah.
You want to help her?
Sure.
She needs to catch back up.
I got booted out.
So she needs to make the she needs to make the hierarchy. And get our
So you want to just grab one. So this category. I'm just going to drag it right on top of it. And that will pop up. So go ahead and share. It'll pop up on the other side. It'll show hierarchy column. And it also shows here. And then there's multiple ways to sort. So it's either on the top. Yeah. Or out to the back of left hand. Yeah.
Okay. Apologize about that. We're going to make sure, though, that everybody's staying along. So how many people have been able to create their grouping here? Anybody who has not? Okay, Joe, can you help this gentleman create this grouping? We're creating small items.
Can we save this so that if we lose our Tableau server session again?
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything?
Yep, good call. So if you want to go ahead and save, on the upper left-hand corner under File, you can do a Save As. Put your last name, and then give it a description, just so you'll be able to find it. Okay. So all right. So what we've done now is we've created our visualization. We've got our category with the subcategory hierarchy. We've done some grouping together. But now, what is the one thing, this is sort of shout-out time, what is the one thing that every organization has to have, well, most every organization has to stay in business? If you're a commercial operation, what is the one thing you have to stay in business, unless you're Amazon? Anybody?
Profit.
Profit, right? So we want to take a look at profit on this. So what I want you to do is just watch for a second, and I'm going to ask another question. So I'm going to go and find profit over here on my measures. and I'm going to drag it up to my worksheet. And you'll notice that it says Show Me. So Tableau employs some of the world's best data visualization experts. So how do you think Tableau is going to show the second measure on this bar chart? Any thoughts?
Going to drop it at the top of every bar.
So it could be a stack bar.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
Oh.
It might be. He cheats. All right. So, other answers could be a stack bar, side-by-side bar. But in this case, Tableau says color is a really good way of showing that second measure on this visualization. So what stands out? Shout out time. Come on, we want to keep this interactive.
Table.
Tables, right? So in the upper right-hand corner, we'll notice that we have a color legend. So the darker the orange, the worse, if you will, the profit. The darker the blue, the better the profit. So I have optimists and pessimists in my sessions. The pessimist is ones who look at it and say, tables is what stands out, right? It's the worst. I don't want to deal with the tables. If I was a product manager, I certainly don't want to be doing anything with tables. The optimists, they look at maybe the phones or the copiers because they have a really dark blue, and so that means things are well. But then you also have people that are a glutton for punishment, and they want to prove their worth, and they'll say, no, I want to go and I'll handle tables because I can turn it around. With all sorts. All right, so we're looking at this, and we can certainly see that tables are not doing very well. So my next question is, well, is this everywhere? Or is this maybe just tied to a specific region? So what I want you to do is locate region on the dimensions and drag it up to the row shelf. So find region and drag it up here to the row shelf. And it doesn't matter where you put it, Tableau is going to automatically put it on the far left-hand side. So now, what stands out?
East.
The east, what?
Under the category of furniture and tables.
Tables, right? So tables in the east are not doing very well. Now, if somebody was presenting this to me, I may look at that and say, oh no, you're wrong. That's not right, your data's incorrect. And traditionally, if somebody said that and then he said, prove it to me, we'd have to go back, maybe run another report, and but we're in the flow of analysis here. We should be able to see all that underlying data immediately. So what I want you to do is go ahead and click on that bar, right? It's a mark, so let's click on it. And what you'll see is that box pops up, and on the far right-hand side of the banner, we'll see something that says View Data. So let's go ahead and click that. Now, by default, it just shows me my summary data. But I want to see all the underlying data, everything that makes up that mark. So I can see on my tab up here at the top, full data. So let's go ahead and click that. And so now I can see it's telling me I have 80 rows of data that make up that single mark. And now it's showing me all my profit, all my sales. And if I want to see all the data, I want to see every column, I can go ahead and turn that on also and show all the columns. So now, instead of this becoming a presentation, it becomes an informational session, right? It becomes a discussion with the person. We can now look at this and we can say, look, here's the deal. We have this, a profit of negative almost $300. Another one, negative $75, $76. Oh, yeah, I forgot about those, right? So anywhere that there's a mark, you can get to that underlying data. Pretty powerful. All right, you can go ahead and X out of that. And if you want to clear your sheet, you can just either click on the bar that was selected, or you can select, click in the white space. Either one. All right, so congratulations. You have now completed your first Tableau visualization. If you want, you want to go ahead and change the tab name at the very bottom where it says Sheet 1. You can go ahead and click on that and maybe call it, I'm going to call mine Products. Okay. We're cooking with gas now. All right. So what we want to do is, our analysis isn't complete, right? We want to continue on. So what I want you to do is find at the very bottom, next to that tab we just pointed out, there should be another little icon there to create a new worksheet. So a little picture with a plus sign, go ahead and click that.
Kevin, I hear you're cooking with Kenmore, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm cooking with Kenmore. Thanks, David. Okay. Private joke. Yep. All right. So now what I want to understand are my sales again. But this time I want to maybe look at it geographically. So what I want you to do is find state up on your dimensions and go ahead and double click on state. So depending on the speed of our internet, everybody should have something that looks like this. Not real informative. Basically what this is telling us is that we've had sales in all 48 contiguous states. No sales in Alaska, no sales in Hawaii, but the 48 contiguous. But I want to know profitability. So what I want you to do is find profit under my measures, and I want you to drag that up to color on the mark card. Okay? So what stands out? Shout out time. California. California. That's our optimist. Texas, our pessimist. Right? Yeah, I mean, Texas is not doing real well. Almost negative $26,000. But California, certainly. Almost $76,000 in pure profit. So that's good. But now my next question is, we know that we have different categories. Is the profitability the same for all those categories? Well, how can we tell that? What I want you to do is go and locate category in our dimensions. Hover over it, and on the far right side of the pill, you'll see a little white arrow, a little drop down. I should go ahead and click that. And what you'll see is the first item down says add to sheet. Let's go ahead and do that. All right? That's not what I wanted. So now we all get to go and try out that undo button. So upper left-hand corner, let's go ahead and undo that. So the point being that I want you to be able to explore, try things, and like, yeah, okay, yep, that's not what I really wanted, and be able to go back. And you can go back in number of times. So you can go down a path and then say, yep, you know what, that's not really the path I wanted to go down, and you can back yourself out. Think about if you went four-wheeling and you're in the middle of a woods or a swamp. You get there and you can't go any further. You want to be able to put it in reverse and back out. That's what you can do here. So what I want to do is I want to grab my category and let's drag it up to filters. So I have a filter shelf also here. Because what I want to do is be able to filter on the different categories. So by doing that, we now see on the right-hand side that we have the ability to filter through the different categories. Now, I hate checkboxes. Tableau by default throws checkboxes in there, and that's fine, but I don't like them. I want to make sure that anytime that filter is on there, that it will always have an item selected. And the problem with checkboxes is if I uncheck all, the viz disappears. Now, there's value in doing that. When you're building out dashboards and visualizations, there's value here, but I don't want to deal with that. So what I want to do is change that to be a radial button. So over on the right-hand side where we have our category filter, there's a little black drop down. Why don't you go ahead and click that? And the fourth item down says, make it a single value list. Why don't you go ahead and select that? Okay, value list. There we go. All right, does everybody get a radio button? Thumbs up? Anybody not get it? All right, I got helpers. I don't want anybody to get behind. Okay, so now you can go ahead and toggle through those. And just see once, we look at furniture. Wow, deep, dark orange in Texas. $10,000 worth of negative profitability on furniture. Office supplies, technology. Hey, Texas is doing better there. I guess they don't need to sit and they don't need to use office supplies, but they love technology. All right, so my last question is, I'm going to go back and put all for my category. I see that I have these different states, and as I hover over them, the tooltips are there, and it's telling me Wyoming, profit of 100, Colorado. But I'm questioning, I know that we have multiple regions. What region are these in? So what I want you to do is grab region over on our dimension. And I want you to drag that to the detail on the mark card. And drop it there. All right, now use your mouse and hover over. And you'll see that that has automatically been added to your tooltip. So now you're able to tell, okay, Wyoming's in the west, Colorado's west, New Mexico's west, but Texas is in the central. Okay, that's pretty cool. All right, let's go ahead and give that sheet a name. So maybe call it Easy Math. All right. Well, let's continue our journey, and let's go ahead and create another new sheet. So this time I'm wondering, how have my sales been over time? So let's go ahead and once again locate sales in your measures and double click on that. Right? And we've seen this before. But now what I want to do is understand over the last n number of years, how are the sales been? So I want you to find order date, and let's go ahead and double click on that. So on your dimensions, order date, and double click. So what happened? How did the visualization change? Anybody? Exactly. So it went from a bar to a line. Visualization best practice says the best way the human brain can look at time series data is over a line. So Tableau says, I'm going to default to that for time series data. Now, and we'll take a look in a second how we can change that. But let's go with it. So we also can see at the column shelf where we have year, that year pill. So Tableau says, yeah, I know in your data source you have exact dates. You have 01/01/2015 or 03/15/2017. But Tableau says, I'm going to aggregate that all up and just show it to you by the year. But I'm going to give you a hierarchy that you can drill into that date and you can go from year to, and let's go ahead and click on the plus sign on year in our column shelf. And we can go from year and break it down into quarter. And we can go from quarter and drill into that and break it up into months. And we can go into from month into day And so we can start to see that we have our year, we have our quarters, we have our months, and then we have each day of the month showing that, and we can scroll across this. Now, just because there's a hierarchy automatically built doesn't mean I have to maintain that hierarchy. Because maybe for my particular use case, I don't want to see it by month, right? I'm focused on just the days of the month and not the actual month. So let's roll ours up into, instead of breaking it down by January, February, March, let's get rid of those and we'll just show the first of each month by the quarter. So what I want you to do is find month up in your column shelf and just drag it off. So you'll notice when you click and you start to drag, when you get a red X in your cursor, that means it's safe and you can just drop it and it's going to remove it from the disk. So now we're looking at year, quarter, and days. So what that's saying is that down here on the first, it says I'm going to take the values from January 1st, February 1st, March 1st, and I'm going to aggregate those up. So I'm showing it by year, by the quarter of the year, and the first of each month aggregated up. Here being the 18th of the day of each month aggregated up and so forth, right? So automatically aggregating depending on how you're telling it to with your hierarchies showing. Well, I don't want to see by day either. So let's go ahead and drag day off. Once again, column shelf, drag the day, and drop it off. Okay, so now what I'm looking at are my sales by year, by quarter. But I want to understand if there's any seasonality in this data. And to get seasonality, basically what I want to look at is, instead of year over quarter, I want to look at quarter by the years, or over years. So we have the date hierarchy up here. What I want you to do is locate year on the column shelf, click it, and drag it to the right side of quarter. All right, so I'm going to point this out again. So what I'm looking at is I have my year over quarters. The 2015, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And what I want to see is my Qs up here, my quarters, Q1, 2, 3, and 4, and then show me my years so I can see once if there's any seasonality. I drag year, swap it with quarter, and now sure enough, I can see that in Q4 of every year, our sales have gone up. Slight from 2015 to 2016, but there was an increase. And that is the only quarter that I've shown continuous increases, right? Q1, we've had a dip. Q2, we've had a dip. Q3, there's a dip. But Q4, slight, but we have shown increase every quarter over the years. Okay. Well, maybe I'm looking at this saying, you know what? This line chart just isn't getting it for me. I want to take a look at this differently. Tableau, I really appreciate that you've suggested the line, but I want to change it. Upper right-hand corner, we have this thing called Show Me. So let's click on Show Me. So Show Me by default has several different visualization types, and you'll notice that some of them are grayed out. So let's hover over one of those, like maybe that map that's there. At the very bottom of this Show Me box, you'll see it says, for maps, try. And it says, basically, you need to have at least one geographic column or field. If you don't, I can't do a map. I'm not going to expose that for you to use. Real important, there are other tools out there that don't do this. They allow you to try to create a map, for example, when you don't have the supporting data types. So Tableau says, if you don't have the supporting data types or the number of columns or the types, I'm just going to gray it out. So we can look at this and say, all right, well, I do have choices. I have some bar charts that I can use. Oh, I have bubbles. Well, maybe I'm a 10-year-old schoolgirl, and so let's go ahead and choose bubbles. Now, bubbles are cool, and you can actually take bubbles and turn those into cloud map, if you will, word cloud. But now that's not going to work for what we want. Maybe we want to come up and look at a tree map. So we can go ahead and look at a tree map. And tree maps are really good for when you have lots of data and you want to show it without any scroll bars. But that's not going to work for me either. I think what I'm going to settle on is this area chart. So let's go ahead and select that. Now I want to sort of collapse that show me. So let's just go ahead and click on the word show me and it'll collapse that window. All right, so what we're looking at here is over time, we can see how our sales have peaked, and we have our peaks and our valleys there. So we start off in 2015 Q1, all the way to 2018 Q4. But what I want to understand is how did each region, right? We had 4 regions, sort of how was their contribution to this overall sales? So let's locate region over on your dimensions, and let's take and drag that over to color on our mark card. Okay. So now if we want, and we just want to focus in on East, we can come over to that color legend, and we can click on East, and it'll gray everything else out and just sort of highlight East. Do that same for Central, West, etc. But I really also want to understand is there a way that I can just focus in on a certain time frame and be able to make this interactive? If I'm giving this to somebody, maybe they're going to want to take a look at some of these dips and understand that in a little bit more detail. So locate your order date from your dimension, and let's go ahead and drag that up to that filter shelf and drop it on filter. All right. So now we see a couple things happen. One, we put that on there. We now have a filter that appeared on the right-hand side. So you can go ahead and interact with that filter. You can use and click on the date to get the calendar interface. And scroll through that, pick specific dates. Either one. Or you can grab the little slider on the right or left. And you now are able to focus in on specific date ranges. Now, if you want to reset that back to its default, if you hover in that filter, you'll notice that in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little filter there, a little funnel. It has a little red X. If you click on that, it'll reset the filter back to the default. We good? Everybody here? All right, perfect. All right. Well, let's create one more. Oh, let's give it a name. Pick out a name, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call mine regional sales. But you can call it whatever you want. Many times I'll go through doing this and I won't give them names. And then at the end I have sheet 1 through sheet N, and I'm trying to figure out what were they. We'll go off on tangents on great things. So it's always good to give names to things. Okay, well let's go ahead and create one more visualization. So down at the very bottom, new worksheet. Now this time, what I want to understand is the correlation between sales and profit. And I want to see this by a multitude of different dimensions. So let's go ahead and find profit, and let's double click on that. We see our trusty bar chart appear. And then let's go ahead and double click on sales. So shout out time. What happened?
Got grid,
What's that?
a grid.
Okay, grid, sure.
Then
Scatter.
profit, scattergram, yeah.
Yeah, right? So
Relationship.
yeah, good call. So here's what Tableau said to the underlying data source. Hey, give me the sum of sales and sum of profit. It returned back one row. Tableau says, okay, I'm going to pop that right up here on a scatter plot because we're only looking at 2 measures. And that's the best way of looking at this. Okay, but it's really not giving me a lot of information here, right? Okay, it sort of did say that, you know, if we hover over this, total sales of almost 2.3 million, profitability is just under 300,000. Okay, but what I want to understand is even more detail on this. I want to understand, well, how did each region participate in this? So find region on our dimensions, and let's drag that to color. And let's drop it there. So now we went from 1 mark to 4. Right? So Tableau says, okay, you want to break that 1 mark up into 4 by, you have the different regions. Okay, that's cool. And once again, we can hover over that, see each one. But I want to know even more. We had category. So I want to know my total sales by region, by category, basically is what I'm asking. So let's go ahead and grab category and drag that to shape. Okay. So now we have 12 marks, if you will, on that card, or on the visualization, on our scatter plot. And so we look at that, you can see we have office supplies in west. Here we have office supplies in east, right? The square is telling us it's office supplies. The color tells us what region. We look at our plus sign, we have circles, and so forth. So it allows us to start to see this a little bit better picture, and we can see, lo and behold, you know, shouldn't be any surprise, furniture in the central. We have good sales, but our profit is much to be desired. But I want to know more. I'm greedy. I want to understand, how do my customers contribute to this overall picture? So I want you to find customer name over on our dimensions. And I want you to drag that onto label. Okay? So now I can start to see my really good customers and my not so good customers. So Tamara in that upper right-hand quadrant. And we've had good sales and good profitability. We love Tamara. Cindy, on the other hand, we could probably do without the Cindys of the world, right? She has not been the best of customers. We're losing money on her. But is it everything that we do with Cindy? Is every deal that we've done with her, have they been negative? Well, I don't know. Well, I want to find out. So what I want you to do is, let's click on Cindy. And once you've clicked on Cindy, I want you to go into that tooltip and find Cindy's name and click on Cindy's name. So what we're now doing is we're saying, okay, show me all of the other orders that are associated with Cindy. So I can start to see, okay, yeah, they're all clustered in that, you know, that 0 area of both profit and sales. And we can come in and hover over those and start to see them. Well, that's interesting. So maybe what I also want to do is add more dimensionality to that tooltip, so I can start to even get more questions answered. So let's do this. Find segment over in your dimensions and drag that up to detail in your mark card and drop it. Do the same thing for shift mode and drop that up there. Go and find city and do that same thing. And that's good for now. So now, go and just find any mark that's out there, any person. Click on that person. And now you have multiple dimensions that you can go and highlight. So just pick one. I'm going to go and look at the city, New York City. So now it shows me all of my customers that have purchased in New York City. So I can start to get insight there. Start to ask and answer questions, well, what were they like? Or maybe I find somebody else and say, ship mode. I want to know everyone that is purchased on a second class shipping mode. And we can start to see that. So the idea here is that we're able to use this scatter plot and really start to see how are these clustered? Do we have a lot of outliers in certain areas and so forth? Now, right now, on the scatter plot, we're looking at about 4,500 marks. We have about 10,000 records in our data set. I know that I have a unique identifier for this record set called row ID. So let's find row ID, and let's bring that up to detail and drop that on. So now I have brought every one of those records in to this visualization. All 9,994 rows of data are being presented here. Tableau does not have a limitation when it comes to how many marks you display in your visualization. Other tools out there do. There's a tool that's very well known. They have a 3,000 limit on a scatter plot. So if I put row ID out there using their tool, it shows me 3,000, at least 6,994 marks unaccounted for. Oh, it'll give you a little icon in the upper right-hand corner that says, yeah, we didn't bring all the data over, but it doesn't tell you which ones. And if you're looking at this and you're making business decisions and you can't visualize all of your data, there's a problem. Because the data it's getting rid of, and it doesn't tell me how it's getting rid of it or which ones. Those could be outliers, those could be clustered, I don't know. If I'm making a decision and those are all outliers and they're off of this, and I don't see them, that can cause problems. Okay, so let's go ahead and give that a name. I'm going to call it outliers. And we'll say okay. All right, so now what we want to do is take these, you got a question?
I have a question. I was just wondering, how did you, like you just gave all those numbers on how many there were. How did you know that?
Yeah, they're not showing up here. I know in Tableau Desktop it shows me, so that's how I knew that.
Okay, because I was just wondering, how would I know that?
Yeah, so one way you would know that, let's go ahead and do this. Go ahead and create a new sheet. And Tableau automatically gives you a default measure called number of records. It's at the very bottom in measures. Go ahead and double click on that. And so it will tell you the number of records there.
And then I can break it up by region and stuff, just like
Yeah, absolutely. So then I can come in and double click on region. And so now it's showing me how many is the breakdown by the regions and so forth. Yeah. Okay? Yeah, good question. Good call out. Appreciate that. All right. So we have those 4 visualizations. We're going to sort of bring those together and tie them together. So let's go ahead and down at the very bottom, next to the new worksheet, we have new dashboard. So let's go ahead and click that. Now we're going to do a little housekeeping here real quick. Upper right-hand corner, where it says size, I want you to click into that. And where it says fixed size, I want you to click there. And I want you to choose the second option down, which is automatic. So Tableau by default says I'm going to make it this fixed size, and that's really good. If I know that that's the device size that things are going to, or I want to design to a specific size. In my case, I want to say automatically resize based on the device you're going to, based on its resolution and its size. So we're saying, oh, automatic, now it makes it really big. All right. So first thing I want to do is let's start to bring some of these worksheets or visualizations we've created over into our dashboard. So you can go ahead and just drag them. So grab products or whatever and drop it. Then we're going to bring some other ones over. So you can pick and choose, and you can make them and put them wherever you want. I'm going to grab my easy map, and now when I bring it over, we'll see that it's going to give me a gray area where it's going to drop it. So I can pick and choose. Maybe I'll put it over on the right side. You can put them wherever you want, not a big deal. Let's grab regional sales or another one, and maybe put that there, and my outliers down there. So once again, you can put them wherever you want. If you want to move them, you can highlight the actual visualization, grab a hold of the handlebars, and you can drag it around anywhere that you want. Okay, so I have my visualization. Now traditionally, if I wanted to be able to filter down by a state, I would have a state filter drop down, right? Go into it, drop down, and say, okay, give me Michigan or give me Texas or whatever. But a better way of doing that is to allow the visualization to be your filter. So what I want to do is when I come in here and I click on Michigan, I want that to filter the other visualizations. Okay? So I'll come in here, I'll clear that. If I've selected this map, I should see on the right-hand side, or maybe it's shown on the left, depending on your orientation where you put it, this little icon that says Use as Filter. Everybody see that? Let's go ahead and select that. And once you've selected it, it'll turn white. Now, you can go and pick any one of those states, Texas, for example, and it'll now filter the other visualizations and only show me data from Texas. Maybe I'm showing Michigan. It'll filter just for Michigan. Maybe I want to say Michigan and California. Hold my control key down and click on California, and I can start to see that. And if they're in separate regions, I can start to do those comparisons. So we can see, how's Michigan comparing to California? Michigan's in Central. It's the only state selected in Central. Here's this California from the west, and I can see, yeah, California by far surpasses Michigan in sales. All right, we'll go ahead and clear that. You can click on any of the white space. Now, one other thing I want to do is when I created my category filter, that was tied to my map. Well, I also want that to apply to the other visualizations in my dashboard. So go and select and click into the category filter. You'll notice that there's a gray box that appears left-hand side, a little white drop down, click on that. The first option says, what do you want to apply this to? All visualizations using a related data source are all using this data source. So let's pick the second one. So have this filter apply to all visualizations that are using the same data source. So you do that, now you can go ahead and click on your filter, and that will filter all the visualizations down just for those categories. Now, we could do that for our date also if we wanted to. So I'm going to go ahead and look at all. Something else that, because of the way in which we use region across all of these visualizations, I can come over to that color palette, the color legend, and if I click on Central, what it'll do is it'll highlight all the Central and all the different visualizations. So now I can get a quick insight of, oh, what states were in the Central, or what states are in the South. How did South pertain to its regional sales? Highlight that. Where are all in the scatter plot, all the records that are associated with South? Let's highlight those, and so forth and so on. And there's a lot of other things that we can do here. But for today and our time, we've now created our first 4 visualizations and combined those into a dashboard. So congratulations. But we're not done. What we want to do is let's save this off so that we can get it to that vice president. So up in File, click Save As. You can it should highlight, publish your work here in the project, and you can go ahead and give it a name. I'd suggest using your last name maybe and your, just another name to describe it. I am going to pass along. I'll start it over here with this young lady. If I could get you to, I forgot to do this earlier. So if you could fill this out with your name, job title, email address, pass that down the row, I'd appreciate it. All right, has everyone successfully saved their work? All right. Yes. All right, yep, so put it in, so we can put them in different projects. I'm thinking that we only have rights to put it into publisher work here, so we'll do that. We have a couple options here. If we want to show all of our sheets as tabs across the top, you can choose that. And then if we were using a data source that required a password, we could embed that password into it so that it wouldn't prompt people for requiring them to log in to provide that. All right. All right. So you're at this point. Let's go ahead and upper right-hand corner. Let's X out of this. So now what I want to do is everybody find their visualization that they created. So does everybody have this line up here where it says home and publish your work here? Anybody that doesn't? Okay, good. All right, perfect. So go into that. When you get there, go to workbooks. And you go in there. You can also do a search at the top. Just locate yours if you can find it. If you can't, then you can do a search and find it. What do I call it? Right here. All right. Once you found it, you should have something that looks like this. All your sheets that you published up, plus our dashboard. Let's go ahead and click on your dashboard. And of course, I didn't name mine, so it's just called Dashboard 1. So is everybody good? Everybody found theirs? You have it? All right. So now let's talk about some things. So we've just authored, we've just created a dashboard and some content. We've now put it out into Tableau Server, and it's now available for others in our group, whoever has security and authorization to get on the site to see it. Well, let's talk about some of the options or things that they can now do with this. So, the first item is we have this thing called View, and it says Original. Now, we built a pretty generic dashboard, right? It's able to answer a lot of questions, and my role as maybe a manager is that I deal with Michigan and I deal with office supplies. That's my role. Every time I come into this visualization, I want to see it filter down automatically for me. Joe, he might be in charge of California and technology, and others might be in charge of different states and other categories. So everyone wants to pick and choose their own. So go ahead and do that. Whatever you want, I want you to pick a state. I'm going to pick, oh, I don't know. Let's go, I'm going to go Colorado. And I'm going to pick office supplies. So I've selected on the map a state, and I selected from the category filter a category. So what I want to do is go up to where it says View Original, and click into that, and I want to say, I want to create my own default view. So every time I come into this visualization, it is going to pre-filter for me. And I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to call it Kevin's View. I'm going to go and make it my default. And I'm going to go ahead and save it. All right? Now, every time I come into this viz, it's going to pre-filter that for me. Now, this isn't security, right? Because I can still change the filters and so forth. But it's really that ease of work or ease of use. Every time I get this, this is the way it's going to look. Now, I have other options across there that we're not going to go into specifically, but I can go ahead and schedule this, right? And so I can have it delivered to me, every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, for example. And it's going to be delivered to me, and it's going to look like that. And I can set up multiples of those. I can say I want to look at this, and I want to have another one for this, and another one, and I can schedule all of those, and so forth and so on. But that's the value proposition here. So I can have it delivered to me every day into my inbox, and be able to see it, and I don't have to go through and pick and choose a lot of different filters. And this is huge for me. Because at Tableau, we have very large generic dashboards, sales dashboards. Every sales rep at Tableau. Man, I tell you, I don't have time to go and filter those down each and every time I go into it. I'm only concerned with two people, David Wysocki and Cass Kettner. Those are the two sales reps here in Michigan that I support. So I go and filter it down for those guys. Every day I get that dashboard and I can see immediately. It's a no-brainer. You can also set alerts. So if there's a threshold that I want to be made aware of, if something goes below a value or above a value, we can go ahead and set alerts and have that delivered only if that alert is triggered. And we can do some things like that. All right. What time did I have till?
We're right about now. I think and then we'll take a 15-minute break.
All right. Well, we didn't get to our exercises, but these will be available, the site, and the login and passwords you use. Those will be available for probably till mid next week or so, give or take. By all means, you're more than welcome to, on your breaks from here and over the weekend and probably into next week, venture out, play. Create some new content or some new visualization. Change some things up. Explore the data. It's a really good way of just getting indoctrinated into Tableau, understanding the things that you can do. And as I pointed out, we went through web authoring. We saved you the pain of having to download something to your desktop. But Tableau Desktop is certainly available. It does have a little bit more richer functionality right now. So that's also available for a free 14-day full function download. Just go out there to tableau.com. You can download that, install it, and you'll be able to play with it that way too.
Yeah, I think it's important to note also, we're using what's called Tableau Online, which is our SaaS offering, which is everything is hosted by Tableau. So if you do want, you can go on, just like you can do a trial for our desktop, you can do a trial for Tableau Online, and you can publish your internal analytics and get it out to people in your own organization. So you can do trials there and sign up right on the website, and it'll be provisioned for you right then.
Yep, good call. So we're going to take a few minute break, and then when we come back, I'm going to show you our latest product that we just released back in the April timeframe, so forth, maybe a little after, but I'll call Tableau Prep. It's a tool that's designed to allow you to prepare your data for analysis. So sometimes when you have your data, this is the technical term, it's wonky, right? Maybe it's cross-tabular data, maybe it's just data that needs to be cleaned up. you have multiple files from different sources that need to be merged or unioned together or joined together, how you can do that before you go and prepare, or before you go and bring it in for analysis. So we'll have about a 15-minute break. We'll come back and then go through 1 or 2 use cases with Tableau Prep and continue our day. So I'll be around if you have any questions, but we will reconvene at, let's do it at 10:40. 10:40 on the nose. All right? Thank you. If you begin your journey with Tableau and you're looking for inspiration, Tableau has this site called Tableau Public. It is a free site. Anybody can publish up to it. And it is a really good place to go to get inspiration on what other individuals are doing with in creating visualization. Now, I said it's free, so it's a really good place to put non-corporate data. But if you're passionate about something, if you're passionate about the elections or about taxes or about, you know, Pokemon scores or, you know, the Game of Thrones or any other kind of data out there that you have and that you're passionate about, it's a really good place to go and create a visualization. And we actually have a version of Tableau Desktop for Tableau Public. The only difference is between that and everything else is that you can only publish to Tableau Public. So it's all free. You can't go and create something with that version of Tableau Desktop and publish it, save it off to your local machine. It has to be published up to Tableau Public. But when you go out here to Tableau Public, we have this gallery. We also have Viz of the Day, Viz of the Week. You can sign up for those and have a visualization delivered every day to your inbox. The marketing team at Tableau picks one every day to be delivered out. And we have an author in the room here who several years ago created a visualization, put it out here on Tableau Public, and it was about fishing in the mitten. And it would be Nolan. So Nolan is the fishing in the mitten. I'll let everybody, if you want to go out and take a look at it, just go out to Tableau Public in the search and put in there fishing, and you'll be able to see that. But it's a really good place to get inspiration if you're struggling or you just want to understand what you can do with Tableau. And many of these visualizations that are out there, you can download. And so you get the data and you get the visualization, so you can sort of, I hate to use the word reverse engineer, but you can sort of unwrap it and sort of figure out, oh, how did they do that? Because there's a lot of things you can do with Tableau beyond what we just got into in the last hour and a half. So use that as part of your inspiration and part of your journey. All right, so what I'm going to do now is talk about and go through some use cases with some dirty data. How many people, when you want to look at your data, you know, and start analyzing it, it is pristine, it is perfect, you don't have to do anything. Yeah, Mr. Spezia says, man, he's the liar. I've known that guy forever, and I've known his family even longer. Most of the time, we have data and it has some issues. Either the issues are in the data itself, it's got some erroneous values. Maybe we come and we find that I need to take source A and B and join them, or union them together, or join them together. Maybe it's just the format of the data, right? We get cross-tabular data in spreadsheets many times, and it's very wide. And to do analysis on it, you want to really make it long versus wide. We're going to take a look at something like that. So we're going to go through some use cases here. If you have questions, by all means, let me know. But what I'm going to do is launch into that, and let's have some fun. All right. So I'm going to be using Tableau Prep. It is a PC-based product right now. Eventually, I think we will have it as a web application. Now, the whole value of Tableau Prep, and the reason we came out with it, was that we talked to customers, and they would say, you know, we really love Tableau, but we have issues with our data. Variety of things that I just went through, right? The format, it's just, you know, the data itself is dirty. We need to clean it up. And so we took a step back and we said, okay, how can we help our customers that are out there? All right, So the scenario here is that I work for an organization, once again, and we have just purchased another company. So I work for Superstore, we've just purchased SupplyMax. We have not integrated our back-end systems, but we want to do analysis on our combined sales. So the individuals at SupplyMax will give us a spreadsheet or a text file or some other type of thing, and I need to join that with my relational database. So that's my task. So I'm going to come in and take a look. What they're giving me is a text file. I'll go ahead and navigate to that. And here I have my SupplyMax sales. Okay. So I'm going to come in and it immediately now gives me my file here. There's some important parts here. One, this white space up here, we call that the process flow. So as we build things, as we change the data, we're going to see that sort of get built out here. And then down below, we have some additional information areas. So I'm going to start off by just saying I want to add my next step. And really what this is doing is giving me the ability to look into the data. Now, I have three different components here. One, I have my process flow up here. Number two is I have my profile pane. And number three, I have my data grid. As I select items in my profile pane, those will appear down here in my data grid. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind here is we'll notice that we have some gray bars, right? So I have consumers, and it's a very large gray bar, corporate, a little bit less, home office. That's actually telling me the number of records sort of in that data set, right? Real quick, I can sort of see that visually. All right, so I have some issues with this data that's coming over from my SupplyMax friends. And one is that they, in my ship mode, they're giving me data with both first and first class. Well, those are the same. But I also have same day, and then I have second class, once again the same, standard class the same. So I need to clean that up. A couple different ways of doing that. One, I could just come in here and say, all right, wherever there's first, I want to make this first class. So I can double click into it, type in class, get out of it, and it's going to go and group those together. It's really going to take and change. Every place it found first, it's going to replace it with first class. Now those are going to show up on my profile pane the same. Now something else you'll notice there is that when I clicked into that, it gave me a blue bar, not only there, but across other fields. What that's telling me is that with first class, here are other records that are associated with that, anywhere that it's blue. So I can see first class, okay, I got first class that's found in consumers, corporate, home office. I can sort of see by the size of that blue bar how many records there are there, and that makes sense. I can also see the number of number of units that are sold associated with it. And as I clicked on that, it now is giving me down here all of my records that are associated with first class. My ship mode, first class, and we'd be able to scroll and get all of those. So as we take action and we do things, Tableau's giving us answers. It's giving us responses specific to what we're doing. Now, I've changed that first in first class, but you know that can be sort of tedious, right? If I have lots of these values that sort of need to be, put together, well, I want to have, let's let the machine do the work. So I can come in here and I can choose this group and replace. We just did manual. Maybe I want to do it based on pronunciation. Let's see what that gives us. So choosing that, it goes through and it says, okay, second class, those are the same. Standard class, those are the same. So I'm going to go ahead and group those together. Now, if we make a mistake, we can come in here, highlight that, and we'd be able to unclick or maybe check and say, you know what, standard should also be part of that. Then we can do that. Or, no, it shouldn't be, and we'll uncheck it. So you have that ability to override things. But it certainly makes the job much easier by just having to do that. Now, as I continue looking at this data that comes from our wonderful friends at SupplyMax, I'm noticing on their shipping costs, they have a negative 100 here. And so what we're looking at there is sort of a summary data. Let's go into details. and I have negative $100 in shipping costs. Well, that's just wrong. There's no way that we pay to have our product shipped, right? We charge for that. So I can click on that, and once again, I can start to see records that are associated with it. I can see, interesting, the city's null, units sold, 0, state's null, your founding consumer, got some, which looks like a bad product ID. Maybe this is data that was kept around from some testing. I don't know, but it's wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to say get rid of it, exclude it. We don't want to look at that. That's going to throw our numbers off. So we've gotten rid of that. Now, we are keeping track of all the different changes we're doing to our data. We have it here. We did a group and replace. We did another one. We did a filter of getting rid of something. So we're keeping track of all those items. If we decide that, oh no, really we do want to have that, we can come in here and remove it and so forth. All right. So we can come in here and continue to clean up the data, look at it, analyze it. But what I want to do now is actually combine this with our Superstore data. And that Superstore sales data is actually located in a SQL Server database. So I come in, give it the machine. We'll say, all right, let's make that connection to SQL Server. Let's go ahead and select the database that we want to deal with. Let's grab our table that we have out here. And now what I want to do is I want to take and do a union of these. I don't want to join them, but basically I want to take the sales that we have from our supply max and just drop them right on top of our data and see how they line up. I'm just going to take my data source, drag it over here, and I'm going to say, let's do a union. All right. So many times when you do a union, not all the fields will match up. Maybe there are different names, maybe there's just extra fields in one of the data sources. And so on the left-hand side here, we're able to start to see that. And so we can see that, and color is important here as we're looking through this. Notice that the field quantity is associated with gold. Gold is associated with our database. Blue is associated with that text file we brought in. We try to keep that color coordination going so that you can see immediately where something came from or how it's being done. All right, so I'm looking here and I have quantity. So quantity, I'm assuming, is also the same as units sold in my other data source. So I'm going to highlight quantity. I'll come down. I get a little plus sign when I roll over the units sold. Let's go ahead and click that. So now I've brought those two fields together. The last two remaining unmatched fields I have is region and company. Yeah, those are just going to be two separate fields. They really don't have anything to do with each other, so we'll just leave those. Now, if I have a lot and I'm working through those, got a little checkbox here that I can say, just show me the mismatched fields also in the grid. All right. So we can continue doing those types of things. What I want to do now is I want to go and combine this with our product master. All right, so we have our sales data. I want to go and combine it with the product master. Well, product master is in yet another data source. Like that's sitting in Excel. Here's our product master. And so we have our product master. Now, we don't want to do union, but we want to do a join. Right? We have our combined sales data, and I now want to go and join that by product ID to our product table. So we'll drag it, come over here, and we're going to say we're going to do a join. You can see that join sort of highlighted to the right there. Drop it. All right. So now Tableau goes out and it looks for like column names, like column data types, and says, all right, here's a suggestion on doing your join. We have product ID and both. And if we do a equal join, we can see that what we end up with are 10 records in our green source that don't match up, so green is our union, that don't match up with anything that's in the product master. Well, that's interesting. How can we sell things that don't have a correspondence in our product master? Well, that's interesting. Well, I want to know what those are. So if I can just click on this 10, it brings them up here, also brings it up in the profile. And so I can start to look, well, where did they come from? I'm joining on product ID. Maybe I come over here. Oh, that's interesting. I got some erroneous values, it looks like, in my product ID. I got 3 dashes there. Well, that's not right. Well, what if I get rid of those dashes? Click on that, and immediately I end up with no records being excluded. So that was my issue. Now, we also have the ability to change the join type. If you wanted to do a left join, we could do that by clicking there, a right join, full join. Not here to teach you about joins, but you have that quick capability. Yes?
So when you took those 3 dashes off, did you update the data?
So, okay, so the question is, when I took the 3 dashes off, did it update the data? It did not write back to my original data source. It updated it in this flow so that going forward, those 3 dashes will not appear, but it did not rewrite it back.
So you get more instances of repeat data with that product ID with 3 dashes at the end. It will say, no, ignore the 3 dashes.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole value here is that we build these flows once, and then they can become reusable. So I can, as data is coming in. Now, in reality, I would want to know that, which ones, so I would go and track those numbers also, so I could feed that back to the source system upstream that says, hey, fix this. You know, when you send me stuff, I don't want to have to be fixing this every time. Fix it upstream. So, yeah. All right, so we've done this, so we've brought together, you know, a text file, unioned it with a SQL Server database table. Then we brought in our product master from Excel, right? So 3 disparate data sources, we joined that together. And now we can come in and maybe we'll add another step just to see what our data looks like here. And we can go ahead now and do a write and write this out. But maybe before I do that, I want to know what's this going to look like in Tableau. Well, I can come in and say, well, let's just preview this in Tableau Desktop. So we'll go and instantiate the data source, and now we'll launch Tableau Desktop, and now we'll be able to go and take a look at that. Now the value here is that anywhere along that process flow, I could go and jump out to Tableau Desktop and see what's my data going to look like. I don't have to wait till the end. So as I go through and I make a change, let me see what it's going to look like, all the way through. And so we can come in here and see our sales by customer, sort it, is that what we're looking for, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe, yep, that's what we want. So we'll go ahead, spit out our output. We can save the data off into 3 formats. So standardized CSV file, so it can be consumed by any tool. And then we have the traditional TDE file, which is a Tableau data extract, consumable by Tableau Desktop or Tableau Server. And then we have our new Hyper, which is the same type of thing as a TDE, but it's faster. It's a different type of data set. It's just super fast in-memory data source. Okay. So that's sort of a use case of combining this disparate data. I want to go through one more that I think is probably more common, and that is one where we get data that, well, you know what, let's go do this. I'm going to add data, it's an Excel file. And I have it here, let me just open it up. Let's take a look at it real quick. So what this is it's an Excel file that has sales and tax for a interesting product that's out there. And we have from 2015, 16, 17, and 18. And our 18 data, I think, only went up to, just a few days ago. Or 17 data, I'm not sure why it's 18 here. But So the structure, though, is something that's pretty common where you have a month, and then we have the sales and the tax for that month. Then we have a next month and sales and tax, and that's really repeated from 2015. So we can look at this, right? So June, oh, this must be fiscal data, that's why. But anyway, so June to whatever, everything's broken down. Well, to analyze this, we really need to go from that wide format, and we need to make just maybe more long, just have me my sales data, my tax data, and a date, right? So we can start to look at this. So how do we do that? And keep in mind, we had 4 tabs of data there, right? 14, 15, 16, 17. All right, so first thing, I see this thing called the data interpreter. Anytime I have that, I want to go and choose it, because what Tableau is able to do is analyze that data set and look for the tables of data that are found in there. It has multiple tables. It's going to be able to break those apart. But I can see now that it has come up with some subtables called 2015 A2 through AA35. The same thing for the 16, 17, 18 data sets. So I'm going to go ahead and bring one of those over. And now I want to do a wildcard. I want to take all 4 of those tabs and union those together through a wildcard. And I'm going to say the A2, so wildcard, A2, wildcard. So basically I'm saying just grab the 4 that have that pattern with them, right, that A2. Okay, it shows me that those are them right down here. Right, if I do that, now I just have the 4. We'll say go ahead and apply those. So it's taken all 4 of those tabs, put them together. So I can see I have my June sales for 2014, my tax sales for 2014, July, August, so forth and so on, and that'll go for everything. But now what I want to do is pivot those. So let's go ahead and bring in a pivot. And what do I want to pivot? Well, I want to take all my sales data first. So I'll highlight those. Bring those in. My next pivot, I want to do tax. Pivot our tax. Drag those there. And so now I have one last thing I want to do, and that's where I have my pivot name here, which I could call, let's change the name and let's call that month year. And then I have date over here, which is really the day. What I want to do is create a new date field. And I want to do that by combining that month year along with the day. All right. Let's go ahead, add a calculated field in here. I'm going to call it new date. Call it date. I want to take my year month and let's concatenate that with my date. There we go. We did it right. Oh, got an error. All right. So now it's telling me that this function, it wants, it doesn't want a string and an integer. It wants a string and a string. Okay. Well, so I can come in here and take that date. Date over here. Let's go ahead and change its data type to string. Now, we know from our previous example that we're keeping track of all that we're doing, but I can't do that calculated field until I've changed my to a string. So I'm just going to take and move this up ahead of it. So now, changed it to a string. My calculated field is good. I can come in here, see my new date. Let's look at it by detail. I got some erroneous values here that are just null. We can get rid of those. And we can come in here. I don't need this now. We'll go ahead and remove it. We'll remove this one. And let's go ahead and look at that in Tableau. So just that quick, I was able to take that cross-tabular data that had sales and tax, sales and tax, sales and tax by the month, pivot it. So I ended up with a date field, a sales, and a tax. So we can now go and look at that and analyze it. Look at our sales over our new date. And we can continue to drill in like we've seen earlier. All right, I could spend hours going through different use case and examples of using Tableau Prep, but these two sort of encapsulate being able to take disparate data and bring it together, regardless of where it's coming from, union or join it, and then also being able to take, this is probably one that I think is probably most popular, is taking this data that's cross-tabular, formatted, and pivoting it to make it available for analysis. Any questions on Tableau Prep? Yes?
So when you are creating a dashboard using the demographic data from the world sites, like World Bank or like WHO websites, usually there is a distinction in the years from when the data is collected. How do you manage to aggregate that data into Tableau?
Okay, so you're getting your data and it has what's the dates?
The data is collected at different years because they don't have consistency in the years that, when the data is collected. When you have to combine or aggregate such a data to be used, how do you collect it in Tableau Prep? Like how do you sort of like coincide the data in Tableau Prep?
So you're saying it's just different dates?
Yeah, from different sources and different years and dates.
Yeah, so I would use probably the union and the join depending on what my use case was, but I would come in and take my different data that's coming in from different ones, maybe the years or the dates are different names. I would union those together, look for like fields, and merge those, and then look at, and then I'd be able to start analyzing it, I think. So union would probably be the best bet to take those disparate data sources that are similar in nature and be able to prepare those. Yeah.
We have a really good text file union. So if you had multiple text files representing different years, the text file union feature, as long as it has similar headers, it's going to work really well. I would love to explore it that way.
Yeah. Any other questions before I bring Joe up here to? Yes.
So you do all your work in prep, and you create your extract, whether it's a hyper file or whatever. Can you just set that aside and then pull that in as a data source?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So, yes, let's take a look at that real quick. So assuming that I finished up here, I add my output, and so now I can save it off, I can give it a name. In this case, it's going to be called output 2. I run the flow. It is now created, well, probably says I've used that name before. It has now created this data source and it's out there. So I can open up Tableau Desktop and say, point to this file, this extract file, and get to it that way. So yeah, so they're totally independent products. This process flow can run, it'll write the file out, and then at some other time in the future, I can go and pick it up with Tableau Desktop. If I'm using Tableau Server, I can actually come in here and publish this data source up to Tableau Server too for use. So how we, in our exercise earlier, we use an existing data source. That's how we can get an existing data source up there, is through Tableau Prep and have it save it off into Tableau Server.
So just through the data source tab, we can just look for that?
Yeah. Yep. Yep, it's under file, and then it'll be other files, and then you'll be able to find it that way. Yep, quick, easy. Any other questions? All right, well, I'm going to ask Joe to come back up here and go through embedding and extensions, extending Tableau.
So I'm going to try to squeeze probably an hour's worth of content in less than 30 minutes, and then bring up Mr. Spezia. But
just real quick, do we know where the sign-in sheet is at? You got it? All right, perfect. I'll come and get it. Thank you. Did everybody sign it? Oh, okay, we got some people. All right. I'll get it to you guys.
okay, let me get situated here. So this is really kind of two presentations in one, I suppose. One to talk about how to bring more people into the analytics fold. And you know, many of our customers are always asking, how can I embed Tableau into my internal applications, or how can I, for my internal consumption, or how can I embed it into maybe my external customer portal for my customers or my partners to take advantage of it. So because Tableau is really about people, getting people to see and understand their data. And if you think about both the embedding Tableau into other applications and also extending Tableau, which we'll talk about, it's really about bringing more people into the analytics fold. Right? So with embedding Tableau, we're talking about bringing Tableau into our customer portals, into our internal portals. With extending Tableau, we're talking about making Tableau a little bit more application-like and extending the functionality of Tableau with custom code that we can write using our APIs, but bringing more people into the fold by making these applications much more application-like within our own organization for custom functionality, or using some community things and partner things that we have out there. So I'm going to start with embedding. Why do we embed analytics into our applications? Probably the one that's probably most relevant for most of our customers are the customers expect it, and whether they be our internal customers or our external customers, they expect to have their analytics kind of where they go. They don't want there's no longer can we expect people to go out to a separate analytics portal or go and push this button and go out to my analytics. It has to be there, and it has to be embedded in, it has to look like the rest of their application. It has to be part of their process flow. So I think number one is just about expectations have changed over the last few years. Number two, we talk a lot about our customers are really racing to get these out there to their partners and to their own customers and adding them to their own product offerings. So, Tableau has been a lifesaver for a lot of them in avoiding a lot of custom code and a lot of product development cycles and getting something out to their customers or to their partners quickly as a competitive edge as part of their offering. Number three, it just allows them to provide this kind of self-service, along with a competitive edge, provide this self-service analytic platform, mostly for cost savings, so they're not having to go through the development cycles every time a customer asks for something different or a partner asks for something different. It gives them that self-service and allows them to push something out there that's cost-effective for them, and also is of great value to the audience. And lately it's taken a while to get here, but additional revenue streams. A lot of people they were embedding Tableau or embedding these into their applications really as a nice to have, right? But now we're seeing more and more putting them out there as revenue streams, right? So they're making it part of a program that they have that allows them to come in and see analytics about their usage, see analytics about whatever it is that offering is. But we're starting to see more and more people charge for this service that we're providing. So it's kind of gone from get something out there because it's nice to have and make our customers happy to now being many of them are doing it as a kind of a premium revenue stream. And you think embedding these things into a portal or into an external application, why can't you just do this simple with some spreadsheets or whatever it is? But if you're going to do this at scale and if you're going to do this well, it takes a full enterprise platform, right? Because you have to have the appropriate way to access your data, to govern the content, to govern the access to the environment. The discovery, the analytics collaboration, everything has to be, just like if you would roll out an analytics platform within your organization, it doesn't change the fact that you need to secure it, you need to govern it for an external or an embedded application as well. So it takes every bit of the platform to be able to do that. And we'll talk a little bit about really from a core embedding process, it's really about focus on the APIs, right? So we have, our APIs have developed from, just some 3 to 5 years ago where, a little bit of, we're second-class citizens to the rest of our core interfaces, but our APIs are now first-class interfaces to be able to embed and modify Tableau within your application. So our core APIs are something like this. So we're going to talk about some of those at the bottom, but the core APIs are really for embedding an application within Tableau. It has to do with our JavaScript API and our REST API. So our JavaScript API allows, and I'll show you some examples, allows you to take and change the interface, change how the customer or the audience interacts with Tableau within your portal, or within your website, or within your web page. So you don't see all the banners, you don't see all the things that you saw that you've been working with in the workshop. It's going to really tighten up that interface, put a few buttons on there that you want, maybe to close or to export or change or whatever it might be, but allows you to have a very custom end-user experience. The REST API, on the other hand, is really about automating the administrative feature, right? Make sure people access the right things. Make sure that only the dashboards that are exposed to them are the ones that they're allowed to see, right? So it's kind of that underlying, dealing with the server and the security and the governance underlying the environment. Some of these other, we'll talk about the extensions API specifically. Some of the other ones are a little bit, not used specifically for embedding Tableau, but we'll get into a couple of them. So just as an example before I demonstrate, the JavaScript API. Right? So the JavaScript API is really about, again, that interface. And you can kind of see which parts are actually Tableau and then which parts are custom to the interface itself. And so I'll show you a few examples of this, and you can go very, very simple and just kind of get rid of all the headers and footers of Tableau and push it out there so it looks very custom. Or you can make it a completely, kind of a self-contained environment within your own portal. So you can go as far as you want with, how much you want to customize the interface. Right? And then the REST API is just really about, retrieving the content that's available to that user and making a dynamic environment for them, but still securing it and governing it so that, everybody gets exactly what they should have and no more. So let me take you through just a couple of examples of embedding Tableau within your applications. A couple of these are kind of out there in the wild. You can see them on your own as well. I'm going quickly here, but I can. So the first one is from Boeing. So this is right off of Boeing's website, and they do a commercial market outlook every year. And if you scroll down here on Boeing, if you just maybe if you want to Google on your own, you can Google the Boeing commercial market outlook. And you'll see down here, it looks like just a big infographic, but this is actually a Tableau worksheet, a Tableau dashboard embedded within the broader Boeing.com environment. Right, so you don't see anything that would tell you that it's Tableau except for just something here, right? And they even still allow you to download it. Still, you had to go full screen and to share it. So they don't even go as far. They're just doing some real basic embedding, but you still have all of the interactivity you did before. These are story points up here. We haven't really talked about those in the workshop, but that's how you take a set of dashboards and allow people to kind of walk through a story or with whatever it is you want to, whatever message you want to convey with your data. So it's still very highly interactive, right? But this is out there for everybody to be able to use and to explore. Right, so they're using lots of graphics for so it's very infographic looking, if you will, but it's still just pure Tableau. Okay. Another example is kind of the classic example of the JavaScript API, kind of creating a custom interface, as well as the REST API, giving you only showing you what you're allowed to see, and just changing the interface to allow you to access the content. So Purdue has this data digest out there, they call it, and just like any higher ed or public institution, they're required to publish certain things about graduation rates and things like that. So, but it's a very interesting, it's a very well done interface. So these are all individually Tableau dashboards, but the navigation is actually using a combination of the JavaScript API and the REST API to allow them to only see those things that are in those particular folders. So you can imagine within the Tableau environment that you work with, we had individual projects. And so these are the calling out those particular dashboards that are within those particular projects, right? Creating a nice custom interface for the end user. Once you go into one of these though, that's when it's going to invoke what we call the JavaScript API. So no, you're no longer, so you know you have access to it, it's retrieving the information for you, but you don't see any Tableau interface at all here, right? Even if you scroll down, I don't think they left any of that stuff on there. So they don't leave any of the footer stuff on there. And they've given some people some very basic navigation, so some JavaScript API, just some JavaScript buttons using go back to my reports. I can copy this link and send it off to somebody else. If I have a bunch of filters here that I've been working with the data with, I can reset those. You know, many times in this case, they're looking to put these into, you know, report booklets, so you can export this into PDF, or just look at it as a cross-tab of data. So these are things that are functionally, you know, possible in Tableau, but they've just been exposed through some custom buttons, you know, on their website. So a good example of just some classic embedding Tableau within an internal portal. I got a nice example of also just maybe just extending it even further, where I have this is just the kind of internal demo dashboards that I have. That where do I have this? I think this one. We're looking at some compensation information. There it comes. So this is just a quick example. This is just an HR dashboard looking at tenure, looking at average salary increases. But say, for instance, I wanted to maybe do a quarterly audit and look at the merit-based pay increases that I did. This is using the JavaScript API. I've actually added another column to my data to my report, and I said, well, you know, this person maybe has a 5% increase. I want to add them, and up above, it's actually added them to a little audit history. Add another couple more people. And so I can embed this closer to what I always like to say, closer to my business process, right? So instead of taking a list, filtering it down, exporting it to CSV, pushing it over to some application, maybe this is something I want to do I'm repeating so often, I want to embed this process directly within my Tableau workbook, right? So this is just giving my set of data, and I can send it off to whatever application I needed. So these are types of functionality all the way from just real basic embedding, like Boeing has done, to internal stuff, to actually, you know, embedding closer to a business process. So that's kind of a real quick 10,000-foot view of embedding applications with the Tableau applications within my portal. We're going to move on to extensions, but any questions on this one so far, on embedding? Does anybody embed at all? I mean, if you're a Tableau user, do you have any Tableau dashboards embedded? Yeah, catalog apps, absolutely. So let me go on to our newest feature. This just actually came out in 2018.2, Kevin, I think it was?
Yes.
2018.2, which is our latest release. This is called Embedded Analytics. And how do I even want to show this? Let me show this. Excuse me, this is called Extending. So extensions for Tableau is actually how it was labeled as a project. But it really is an API, right? So if you saw a little bit about what we showed earlier, but this is about making your applications become more, I don't know, more application-like, I guess. Making your dashboards become more application-like. So embedding that functionality, the core functionality of something else inside of a Tableau dashboard. And it might be to increase for some custom visuals. It might be for something completely custom within your own organization related to a business process. So we have our REST API and our JavaScript API, which we talked about. And the extensions API is really about, and I'll show you about how it works, but it's really about embedding additional functionality into Tableau Desktop so that people can extend it either with additional visuals or additional functions. Some of the things that we've seen people do so far, and again, when you do something like this and you push out an API, you really have to kind of wait to see what the community does with it, right? This isn't kind of a productized application, if you will, but this is a productized API. And so what people are doing with it, we're seeing a lot of, is just to have, the one that we see most popular right now are custom visualizations. So those things that are possible with Tableau, but might take some additional skills or some additional training to be able to do, trying to make some custom visualizations easier for the masses to do. I'll show you a couple examples of that. Write-back capability, people have been asking for this kind of native in Tableau and native in all of our applications for a long time. The ability to get a dashboard and be able to write back to one of my applications or write back to a Google Sheet or a spreadsheet to be able to use that data somewhere else, right? So that's what this allows you to do. And also just create custom actions where if I click on a particular cell or click on a particular bubble or a particular a mark in your dashboard, to be able to invoke something that's completely outside of the world of Tableau, invoke another business process. So we'll talk about who uses Tableau extensions. So these are actually, the developer is actually going to create it. Right? The developer will actually create the Tableau extension. It's custom code using the extensions API. And they will create what's called a TREX file, TREX file, which is just a manifest that goes into Tableau Desktop. Ultimately, they're creating a kind of a web application that's going to be then embedded within Tableau Desktop. Right? So I'll go through that in the demonstration, but that's ultimately what they're doing. And then the dashboard consumer just drags that extension onto Tableau Desktop and invokes all the functionality that's put inside of it. Okay? And the consumers and other people, and of course it needs to be administered and needs to be secured, and that's what the server people will do. But the core people that are involved in this are the developers that are actually developing this functionality, and then the desktop authors who are using it in desktop. We have an extensions gallery out there, so if you Google Tableau extensions, you'll see the gallery out there. I mean, every week there's a few more that get put out there. They're all by our partners, so you'll see some for custom visualization. You'll see some by narrative science, which I'll show you a little bit today. You'll see some for write back. Some of them are free that are out there as part of the community. Some of them are paid. You have some trial versions or some limited versions. You can go out there, and then they're put out there by our partners for the full versions. Kind of just a quick little graphic of what's kind of been out there. What's been the most popular download. There's one called Show Me More. It kind of extends that Show Me functionality on the right-hand side where it shows the options that you have for your the different visuals. Show Me More extends that, right, and kind of says, here's some custom visuals that we don't have, like a Sankey chart or a custom calendar navigations or radio charts, things like that. So we have a partner that's put those out there. But also some write back and some different parameter controls, different ways to export data, and even things like being able to do performance and usage tracking. Some more administrative functions have been developed with the extensions. So I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of those, which are pretty cool. I'm going to hang out in Tableau Desktop. So we're going to spend our time here in Tableau Desktop, and I'll give you a few examples here. Now remember, what had to happen with Tableau extensions is somebody had to write an extension for me, right, using the extension API. That then so that's code that's then hosted somewhere out on an application server or a web server, right? Then the manifest gets pushed out to my individual users, my individual desktop users. It's a TREX file. that gets put into their directory within Tableau Desktop, and they get a custom object here. It's called a Tableau extension. That Tableau extension within this little custom object, all it does is say, okay, where is my application code sitting? Right? This is a hosted web application somewhere, and how do I use this to invoke this functionality? So in this case, I'm going to use an extension. This is actually by one of our partners on Narrative Science, to be able to actually have a very, well, let me show it to you, and it's easier to explain after you see it. So the sample data that we're using is actually just some insurance information showing the bulk number of claims quarter over quarter over quarter, and comparing that to the ratio of rejected claims quarter over quarter, right? So pretty self-explanatory data, but there might be some interesting things in it that we, as a new user may not be able to interpret. So my extension, just like I said before, I'm going to take this particular extension, I'm going to drag it onto my desktop. Actually, it's a bare extension right now. It's kind of a shell. So I'm going to say, which extension do I want to use? So I can go to that gallery that I talked about earlier and download it, or I can just use my extensions, which I, by chance, never have the right directly opened up. Here it is. So I'm going to use my narratives for Tableau. This is by one of our partners called Narrative Science. They do a very interesting thing, and that what they're doing is creating these narratives for your charts. So they're very flexible, and they very flexible way to bring more people into your analytics fold. First, I'm going to say, well, which worksheet? What is? I may not have internet connectivity. Let's see if I can set this still. One more try. Yeah. So it's going to ask me, first thing is, which worksheet do I want to write my narration about? It's that one right above it. I have my dimensions, I have my measures. It's a continuous measure. And so what it's going to do is create a narrative about the data. And this, to me, this is really the future about where we're going in terms of analytics, and particularly visual analytics. Because you can have a lot of dashboards out there, a lot of visuals, that you want to make sure that the right people can interpret this data correctly, right? And it's going to bring the right people to it. So what we're doing is we're showing the things that, across one measure, it's showing that the sum of the claims fell over 3 consecutive periods. It's decreased over this particular period. It started at rose over these periods for this particular measure. So it's showing, and again, this is a partner application, but it's showing a lot of interesting things about the data that I think can bring more people into the fold and make sure that those people that are just used to looking at the dashboard and maybe closing it down are now going to be more engaged into your application. You can do lots of things like changing the verbosity and all these types of things, but it will change. It's very dynamic. So if I'm just going to click on a single time period, it'll give me a narration about that. Right? Or I could get on a lot of them and see, click on multiples and see what those are like. So I think it's a very interesting one, but again, this is just one example of extending Tableau with a partner application from Narrative Science. I think we talked about before, one of the most requested features is the ability to have write-back within Tableau into some other applications. So we're doing the same thing here. We have our same data set with our claims and our rejection ratio. So I want to I want to use my extension. Click on this. Right. So let's say I want to be able to take and be able to have a user highlight some certain troublesome areas that have high claims and high ratios. And I want to be able to add comments. I'm going to edit this and I'm going to say, this needs to be reviewed. Maybe I want to do another one just so we can get little graphics out there. Edit this record. Save that. I can then send this data. And this data was sent. It notified me that the data was sent successfully. So I can actually go in. I'm just writing back to a Google Sheet. Could be anything. And you'll see that I have this needs to be reviewed and this has issues. A couple of things that we wrote back directly. So imagine this being could be your enterprise database, could be your warehouse, could be your transactional system, right? To be able to be inside of a dashboard and write back directly to that, to be able to, just add value and have it be more application-like, if you will. I can go to the next file, the next tab, and I think I may have to refresh this. This is actually just going to read from that Google Sheet, and it'll show me exactly, what I wrote in there, right? It shows my comments, and it shows me some timelines. So I think this is just a great example of using these not just the extension API, but the things that the community and our partners are putting out there. There's another good one that I wanted to show you real quick. I don't have a ton of time, but I always like the calendar extension. Now, calendars in Tableau aren't necessarily difficult to create, but they do take a certain level of skill and a certain level of experience. And maybe you want everybody to be able to do something like that. So here we have a timeline of our claims. I think this is almost by day, right? So let's create an extension. Let's throw it out there. We'll use an extension rather. And this will use my show me more. I'm going to configure this. They have a lot of visuals that you can pick from. So they have the Sankey diagram, the radar chart, horizon charts, network diagrams, and depending on the nature of your data, you'll pick the appropriate one. They give you some hints here. In this case, let's just use our calendar data, and we'll say where our date dimension is that day. The measure is the sum of my rejected claims. My format is just numbers. So very quickly, without any, and these are possible with Tableau. A calendar is not that difficult, but it would take somebody a few Google searches and some trial and error to create the calendar. So just an example of being able to extend it, not just write back functionality, not just narrative science partner stuff, but custom visuals as well. Right? And so I can see where I think this is going is we have a lot of partner stuff out there, but I think the most incredible things are going to happen internally at customers, right, where they have their own skills. They want to embed functionality directly within Tableau that has very specific things to their business processes, right? So I think we'll start to, over time, see more and more of these as people upgrade, get to 2018.2, and start to invoke this kind of functionality. I have some other ones here, but we're going to be short on time. So, real quick, any questions on? That was a whirlwind of an hour's worth of content in 25 minutes, but any questions? Yeah.
Are those extensions free?
Some of them are, and some of them are partners that have put them out there, and they charge for that functionality.
And what was the last extension you used?
That was called Show Me More.
Are there new extensions that are being developed and added to that?
Yeah, I mean, all of our, I was out there, maybe a month ago, there was probably 8 of them out there. Now there's 12 or 14 of them out there. So it's just all of them. It's either the individual community posting them or partners that are posting them out there.
The really cool part of that is when we were out company meeting, they sort of introduced us to this, and they had no idea how customers or how third parties would use this technology. They just knew that we needed to do it, to put that out there, and it's just amazing to look at how these third parties are creating different things. We had a couple ideas, but they've just taken and just exploded on that. I love the show me more, right? If you try to do a Sankey diagram in Tableau, it's really difficult. It can be done. It takes a Nolan to do it, but now you bring that in a heartbeat. And it's the interactivity between Tableau visualizations and that third-party extension and back and forth that they talk to each other. So highly recommend, if you're down and exploring the path of Tableau, really look at the extensions because they can really expand the possibilities of things to do.
Yep. So next, we're going to close it off with kind of our headliner, if you will, right? The headliner.
Absolutely.
Last,
yeah,
right?
we kept the best to last.
Exactly. So Kevin and I,
Mr. Kenmore.
Exactly. We're Grand Funk Railroad to Journey. Journey's coming up now. Right? So But David Spezia is our, I don't even know what your title is.
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades, but you may have heard of him if you go out on Tableau. You see a lot of recordings on Tableau on big data. He works with most of our customers on most of our largest big data use cases. So take it away, David.
Anybody else need to sign this sheet before I put it away? Everybody got it? All right, thank you very much, I appreciate that.
If it's working, that's a victory in and of itself. I think I need the mic from you, Joe.
There you do.
All right. While we're doing that, I'm going to make sure this works. Okay. All right. So, thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for staying through to the end. I'm going to take you through to lunchtime. I know I'm the last thing standing between you and lunch, so get you hungry. You know, feel free to get up and leave. I won't be a thing. Been doing this for a while. So I want to tell you about Tableau's technical edge in a big data world. This being a big data conference, I want to be able to show you how Tableau works with big data. I used to be the senior product manager for big data at Tableau. It's a title I held until about April. And now I work for our global systems integrator group, kind of as the embedding architect of choice around the world, actually. So it's actually a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it. How many people in here have a big data technology, big data database, something like that, that they're interested in doing analytics on? So we got some relevant audience members in here. All right. So who's this clown? Okay, well, this is me. My name is David Spezia. I've been working for Tableau on the south side of 7 years now. Actually worked in London for 4.5 years, expanding our EMEA business. I grew up on a pig farm in Metro Detroit, which is why I have the pig logo up there. So I'm a native Michigander. Did spend some time in Seattle as a big data product manager, spent time in London. It's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed the journey. And so what can the journey be, right? The journey that I did enjoy. What can the journey be without any actual data to prove it, right? So I always like doing a bit of this stuff, just because it's kind of fun. So let's unlock this again, make sure this is all working, all hunky-dory. It appears to be mirroring. I'll exit this and switch over to here, and we'll get real brave, we'll untether, and we'll change the orientation, and it appears to be working just fine. I like to wander, so when I have cables and stuff, it makes me a bit nervous. So I'm just on the iPad, literally tethered to my phone, and then Bluetoothing over to my laptop. Some really advanced stuff here. This is a visualization showing all the places I've been able to go while working for Tableau since the beginning of 2012. And it really is about the journey, and big data isn't just localized to Silicon Valley, right? Big data is everywhere. I've been to several different countries on behalf of Tableau to go over this stuff. Go faster. So of course, because I'm talking about it, it's not loading faster. So there's some stories in here, and that's really where it is. It's all about the stories and where you get to go. So the country that I actually saw the biggest data in, anyone have a guess? There's a country that's leading the way in a lot of this stuff. Israel. So if I go ahead and set the filter over to Israel, I was able to go out to a really cool city in Israel, and I was working with a research and development company that did research and development for one of the internet-sized companies over here in America, and the record set we were analyzing was 2 trillion records. Right? So we were actually able to analyze 2 trillion records. Right? You may think you have big data. Big data is a relevant term, really, in most aspects of it. So it's always kind of fun to show. It's being very uncooperative. And that's the sake of them tethering. I was screaming earlier. There we go. Come on. AT&T, don't let me down. All right. So you may want to say, hey, Dave, has that all been for work? Or have you been doing some fun stuff too? Well, we do like to have a little bit of fun. I will say what I do is actually kind of fun. I really get to enjoy it. But consulting time, home office time, partner time, pre-sales, Tableau conference, and training. Let's go ahead and apply all that. So as I apply that filter state, we'll see I've actually been to 28 distinct countries on behalf of the Tableau business, 107 different cities. So been all over the world just showing people this product as far north as Waldo in Finland, as far south as Cape Town, as far west as bits and pieces of California, and as far east as this little dot down here. That's too fun, right? So that's a lot of fun. So I'm kind of curious, who's winning here? What country am I spending the most time in? Kind of curious about that. So we're going to go ahead and edit, and we can edit directly on the iPad, which is kind of fun. And as I edit this data set, it's not exactly a big data set, but it's just fun to show some of these things that we do as a company more so than what the other guys showed. I'll go ahead and create a new viz. I'm authoring right here on the iPad, on the web. We'll just go ahead and drag out our dates. And I care about all the individual dates themselves, so I'll switch over to the individual dates. Then I'll go ahead and grab number of nights, put it out here on the row shelf. Then I'll go ahead and grab country, check it out here on color, and I'm going to have a flat line for every single country. That's kind of boring, right? This is America, we like to keep score. Let's go ahead and keep score real quick. We'll add our quick table calculation of running total. And this is going to really change the viz. I'll go ahead and show the entire viz here. And I'll put this little white space. And now we can see the two countries I've been living in the last couple of years, England and then the United States, are dominating this chart. So I'll go ahead and exclude England out of here. We'll scroll down, we'll exclude the US of A. And we'll exclude that out of there. And now I can see the country that is winning. There's this green bar here, that is Germany. Spent a lot of time in Germany. We have big data sets, they're a mature market. We spent a lot of time in Germany. This little line down here, really love it. Ireland, I was actually just in Ireland until Monday. I was there attending a wedding of one of our Tableau colleagues. That was a lot of fun. And the third place country here is probably going to be France. That is France. So been all over, really enjoyed it. I like showing a little bit of mobile authoring and having some fun. All right, let's switch back over to the more serious parts of the presentation. Pull next out of this, go back into PowerPoint, shift F5, and make sure everything's working. Maybe. There it goes. Okay, now it's doing what I wanted to do. All right, so I'll tell you a little story about the kind of stuff I get involved with. I was approached back in February from a company in Japan called NTT.Docomo. And in Japan, they have very rigorous, very kind of well-supported customer loyalty scheme. Because NTT.Docomo had a really great customer loyalty scheme that they had on their phone, and you could get loyalty points. And there's a lot of people you can go. Out of 130 million people in Japan, they have like 80 million people on their loyalty scheme, right? So it's a very high penetration loyalty scheme, even though they're a wireless company. And so they were curious about analyzing all this data, and they came to me and they said, hey, we're putting everything on Azure, and we noticed Tableau doesn't have an Azure Data Lake storage connector. We're putting all this data on there. What are we going to do? So I started asking, well, why? Well, what are you trying to do? Have you thought about where you really want to do analytics? Have you thought about using an analytics database? Why are you storing the records in these formats, right? So I started digging into why. And so there's a lot of confusion out there in the marketplace. And a lot of people are doing this for the first time, right? As they start to adopt these internet scale architectures into big data, there's some confusion on where you should go. What does the roadmap look like? What should I put on my pizza, right? What ingredients should I be using? And so if you don't know exactly what ingredients can be used to do what types of things, it may be a bit difficult. There isn't one way to do this. There's many ways to do this depending on what your current tolerance is, what your skill bases are, right? I wouldn't just make a data lake because you just want to, right? You have to have the genuine, real business reasons for why you want to do this. But ultimately, it's trying to do one thing, and that's make analytics bigger and faster. That's really what we're trying to do. I want to analyze more and more data, and I want to do it at a quicker rate. That's really what you want to do. And so that's what it comes down to. So you want to analyze large and diverse data on demand and interactively, right? So I want to be able to drag and drop and have a query respond to me in a matter of seconds. If I'm an analyst who's used to writing Python code and stuff, I can wait minutes before I get a query back. I'm okay with that. But you really want to be able to analyze all this data you've spent time collecting and storing and processing, right? That's not free. You've done all that. But you want to do it in interactive pieces. So what strategies can you employ to make that true, to make that happen? Well, we're going to go ahead and go through a few things here. I want you to understand a big data strategy for visual analytics. Right? There's a big data strategy for many different outcomes. But the outcome we care about in this room, of course, is visual analytics. We also want to learn how to accelerate those analytics with Tableau on big data. Right? I might come up with a really great chart, but if it takes 5 minutes to load, it's not going to reach anybody. Right? So I want to understand how do I accelerate those things when I get those aha moments. I want to understand some cloud big data architectures. It's not always on-prem. In fact, a lot of these big data architectures are what we call modern compute platforms, really exist in the cloud. We want to combine the why of big data with the why of Tableau. Right? If we put these two things together, some really good stuff actually starts to happen. And then finally, we want to gather a bit more of where this market is heading, so you can be a little bit ahead of the curve. Where is the market going? What types of technologies are coming out there? What can you leverage inside of your analytics kind of strategy for big data to really make you stand apart and make you a leader and actually give you some real competitive advantage, right? If you do this faster and better than others, you will be further ahead of your competition. What the likes of Googles and Facebooks and Apples of the world do with their customer data is amazing and incredibly accurate because they know how to do this kind of stuff. All right, so why? Why are we here? Why are we doing this? Okay, let's go into that. Well, a lot of people talk about Tableau helping them see and understand data. Right? Tableau can also help you see and understand big data. So when it comes to big data analytics, so visual analytics for big data, there's really three options we see in the market. Option number one is do nothing because it's too hard. We know you're not going to do that. Option number two is build it yourself. So if I look at some of our biggest footprints and some of our biggest customers with the largest amounts of data, our number one competitor for selling more software is the tools they built in-house themselves. Right? There's no market competitor for us. It's the tools they built in-house themselves that do some of this functionality. So just build it yourself. Obviously, you're going to want to have a team of pretty sharp engineers and data engineers to make this happen. I'm really, really good friends with one of the guys over at Airbnb, and his data team at Airbnb is only 17 people. They produce products themselves, doing analysis on top of big data. Right? Then there's option number three, which is my favorite option. Use Tableau. Tableau is great in the big data space, especially when you put some forethought into what you're going to be doing with big data. So that's really what it kind of boils down to. Data becomes big relatively when you've got to think about your storage architectures and your compute architectures to deliver analytics that are interactive. Right? That's when it becomes big. Right? For some people, that might just be billions of records are slow. So we need to start thinking about how to accelerate that. For other people, it's trillions. Right? And for everyone else, it's somewhere in between. All right. So we see a lot of people in the marketplace, and in fact, there's a few of these vendors here right now that are commercializing and very rapidly these modern computing architectures. That's really what is the genesis of all of this. Is we've abstracted compute and store, put it onto commodity hardware, we made it fast, cheap, and easy for anyone to analyze petabyte scale data. Right? I can go up and stand up a machine in Amazon in a few minutes and be analyzing petabytes size data before lunchtime. Right? It's amazing what you can do in the cloud. And there's a lot of people commercializing these computing architectures because it's so fast and it's fairly cost effective compared to the big appliances you have to go, big, kind of getting big DBAs in to optimize your databases, right? There's some flexibility here from these vendors, and they're seeing a pretty good pick of product, and they're selling quite a bit of it. It's also in the cloud, right? A lot of our big data projects are done in the cloud with AWS, Azure, and the Google Compute platform. And so there's big data use cases in all of these clouds as well, and how they scale up vertically within those clouds. I think if you open up Amazon and look at all the different data stores they have, aka databases, there's like 15 or 16 different flavors of database you can use in Amazon. Which one should I use for analytics, right? That's a big question. And then the next layer, really, we just want to put it all together. So based on the complexity we've seen, there's a lot of technologies, there's a lot of people commercializing technologies. It can be confusing on what interacts together, but really when you get it right, it feels pretty good. And what we're trying to deliver is this. We want to have any data that we have available for all of our users, and then give them self-service with that data, right? We want to have freedom with any of our data to every single one of our users. And that causes giving access to that data to our users, empowering them with this self-service paradigm, and then finally we get a vacuum that needs data up in that self-service tier. Right? You obviously need to expose data sets to people in that self-service tier for them to be using it. That's why I'm really happy that we have the Tableau Prep product that allows us to meet some of that vacuum. There's other tools in the market as well for big data ETL. But ultimately that delivers agility, right? We have agility with the data structure, we have agility within the self-service paradigm of Tableau, and we allow almost every user access to that, whether they be viewers, interactors, building web-based dashboards, or full-fledged Tableau Desktop users. There's a flavor of Tableau for all of those users where they can do big data analysis. All right, so how do we do this with technology? Great, we've abstracted the problem, we know it's going to be agility, but how are we going to do that with the actual technology behind that? Well, Tableau's had a big data focus. We've had a big data focus for many, many years. Before I joined the company, Tableau 6.1 had connectivity down to Cloudera Hadoop when it was a fledgling company in Palo Alto. The Palo Alto office for Cloudera is literally 2 blocks away from the Palo Alto office for Tableau, which I spent a lot of time at back in the beginning of the year. And so we focus on that connectivity to all data. As new connection paradigms appear in the market, we want to be one of the first companies to have those connectivity pieces built into the product. And we're actually taking the product and make it modular to where anybody with that technology can just drop in a few files, like an extension, and be up and running with their new big data platform. Right? So very, very quick, rapid access to connectivity. And then we want to make it performant. We want to have optimized SQL as we're querying those engines live, or have the ability to extract the information that's useful into our execution engine. So move the compute from the big data platform over to the Tableau platform for analytics, and then being able to discover and find the right data. Pull up the correct objects, start interacting with those objects, see what they tell you, and then make it fast. And so our hybrid data architecture allows us to do that. In a big data world, I still feel there is a use for the Tableau data engine. If I connect to Hadoop Hive and I run queries across petabytes of data, I wouldn't expect the performance to be fast. But as I find dimensions in there, measures in there, functionality and features and formulas that are useful, I might want to extract that out to allow a faster analytical query. Right? So there are some companies that literally just have a big data store and the Tableau data engine, and that's how they do all of their analytics. There's no intermediate database. It's a self-structured store, and then Tableau for the analytical useful pieces. We've had big data connectivity for years. Pivotal and Hawk is in there. Cloudera, MapR, Hortonworks, all the big vendors. Presto, Snowflake, up in Tableau 9.3. Even now going into more semi-structured pieces, like having a S3 connector, having an Azure Data Lake blob storage connector, things like that. Then we can run queries on that, and if we find it to be unacceptable performance-wise, which you most likely will, we then can use Tableau's data engine, Tableau's hyper data engine, to speed up those analytical queries. So we've always invested heavily in these technologies, and we feel we're a leader in being one of the first always to get these types of connectors out there. And if the connector is not there very soon in the product, companies that build these will have the ability to be able to create some files you can drag and drop in Tableau Desktop, and you'll be up and running with those new connector types. So it's a really exciting space, and a really exciting kind of beginning space. All right. So it's a partner play for us in a lot of these spaces. As data ingestion and prep is done in the data lake, there's a series of technologies that run native on Hadoop, like Trifacta, Alteryx is a piece that runs natively there, Datameter, Paxata. We also have Tableau's prep engine as well, but for industrial size data set creation, Tableau prep's probably not going to be for you, but if you've got individual users that need to make data sets for analytics, that's going to be a Tableau prep use case that we're going to nail out of the park. We've also got storage and processing inside the data lake. So where do you want to store it? How do you want to process it? Obviously, there's loads of companies that are building products in this space. There's even interesting things coming out with Dremio and other connectors as well that we're seeing, the internet scale companies leading with. And then query acceleration. Okay, we understand that we can store a lot of data very cheaply. We understand we can do a lot of compute, but for analytical query, it may not be the fastest. So there's some acceleration tiers in here that can really help you do some interesting things. And you see some traditional pre-processed heavily vendors in here, like Vertica and XSL, pre-process it and then put it into a multi-node architecture. There's more dynamic things like AtScale and Jethro and Kybos, which has indexing or kind of metadata schemes and aggregate storage in there, as well as Tableau Data Engine and Tableau Hyper Engine to do some query acceleration. What's right for you? Probably a combination of things. We always drill into a larger conversation about what's your data, who's using it, what are the types of qualifications do those people have, what's the outcome desired, will determine what the technologies are behind this, behind the waterline essentially. All right. There's also data cataloging appearing quite heavily in this space. As people invested in the data lake, they put a lot of data in there, but did a very poor job of documenting what they put in there. And so the business users are like, I want to find data in the data lake. What data set do I need? So Cloudera built one natively. There's a native library inside of the Apache Foundation for doing cataloging. Informatica, Elation, Calibra, and Waterline have products in this space that work interactively with the Hadoop ecosystem. There's even another company called Unify that has a data catalog for Hadoop that fits in this space. As they continue to commercialize and bring value out of the data lake, we need to index what's in there because you can put anything in there. And if you weren't smart about how you structured and stored that, it can confuse people very quickly. All right, so this is what the modern big data stack starts to look like. You get tools on the very tippy top, like Revolution and Tableau, that feed in through the data access layer. That data access layer, depending on what you're trying to do, could be APIs, it could be programming inside of Python to pull data out and do analytics. You could be using Jupyter Notebooks. You could be using API sets directly or SQL on Hadoop, like Impala, like Hive, like LLAP, and others. And then you hit the data warehouse /Mart. So there's kind of some data that we felt was value out of the lake. We pre-process that into something that looks more like a table and allow people to access that. If not, you've got different pieces inside the data lake where it's inside the raw storage as well. And what's crazy and can be a little bit confusing is for Tableau, we have connectors or partners like for all of these big data technologies. And so you start to say, well, if I want to do analytics, which connector do I need? Which technology do I need? And that's where we need to start asking some questions back to you. Who's going to use it? How are they going to use it? What's their qualifications? And what does the destination start to look like? Once we understand what the destination looks like, then we can start feeding in some of the infrastructure below that. Right? If I want to go to Grand Rapids, I know I'm going to drive. If I want to go to San Francisco, I know I'm going to fly. Right? So I need to know what the destination looks like. So I can tell you what mode of transport you want. Let's talk through some big data architectures. All right, so what are some of these actual customers of Tableau doing, and what does their architecture look like? What components have they pulled out? What arrows do they have in their quiver? Right, GoPro, a lot of folks have those GoPro cameras. Those GoPro cameras are all internet connected. They to send data back to the mothership, right? So every GoPro session gets sent back to the mothership. So here they've got a lot of different technologies inside inside of that big data stack, right? They've got an ingestion piece. So this is all that natively executable stuff that happens. They get data in, it comes in, they pre-process it, they do some additional value-add analytics inside of Spark, then they store it into Hadoop Hive. After they store it into Hadoop Hive, they then want to deliver that to people for analytics. So they're not doing analytics on the data inside of Hive. Hive for them is a raw storage of some pre-processed data with the value-add step here between Kafka and Spark inside of the data stream. Once they've streamed it into Hive and they store it, now they want to deliver it to people. So now they want people to start doing analytics on top of that. There's a couple of different ways they're doing that. They have the Hive Metastore, where they process things in Impala, so they're using Cloudera. And inside of that, they've got the Parquet file format. So as you start to store data tables into these big data technologies, the storage format will determine performance. And these things are always changing. Parquet seems to be one of the more popular choices because it's essentially a column stored indexing schema on top of the table that fits really well into data warehousing type queries. There's also other libraries always being output. There's Apache Arrow and a few others as well that are just trying to make analytical queries faster. And that space will continue to mature. As new projects get released into the open source project that is Apache, you will then see as those technologies start to look promising, most people start to move those into their commercialization pieces. So one of the more interesting ones is Presto. You'll see more continued evolution of that space and continued commercialization of those libraries as they continue to hit out there in Apache. So now we've got our data pre-processed and we got it ready for analytics. We've got Tableau and Trifacta sitting on top of that. So if I want to do some additional aggregations or value add in that user tier, I can leverage Trifacta, which executes natively back down into Cloudera and applies user level security because I'm essentially logged in here to Cloudera. Then they're using Tableau to go ahead and create different reports or stage through some data then create reports. So they've thought through this. They did some pre-processing and they allow some post-processing in that Trifacta/Tableau layer. Right? So it's a pretty flexible architecture. It's a fairly common architecture to have Cloudera plus Tableau plus an ETL tool for the end users. There's another one, Expedia. Expedia is a big travel website. They have Expedia, they have a few other properties as well. But they're essentially pulling all their data into Amazon. They're a West Coast company based out in Seattle. Amazon's there as well. And so what they do is they process everything through as well. They land the data in. As they land the data in, they push it into a general storage like Hive called AWS EMR. And from EMR, they migrate the data forward. They migrate it from the data lake into the operational data store, into a Redshift staging space, all within inside of EMR/Hive. And after they get that ready for analysis, they push it out to Redshift for analysis. So they're processing data through more and more value. And before it hits analytics, they push it into Redshift and then do the queries from Tableau's cloud, which has a connector right to Redshift. So we go cloud to cloud in Amazon. And Tableau's online clusters, or Tableau Cloud, sits on Amazon infrastructure as well, so you get a lot of really good performance there as far as network goes. And so they decided, hey, analytics is going to be done in Redshift. So they're turning things from raw data into semi-structured objects that look and feel like a Kimball star, and then do analytics that way. If they wanted to accelerate a dashboard faster than Redshift could handle the query, they then push that into a Tableau data export. So there's some smart thoughts on pre-processing. They're not connecting directly to Hive, instead of using Redshift and Tableau Data Express. That's Expedia's architecture. The next architecture is Netflix. Netflix is a really exciting company. They're doing some great things. I'm a big subscriber. I've used them all over the world. They have Netflix just about everywhere I've been. You're supposed to pull it over and use it. I went skiing in Kyrgyzstan, and I could use Netflix in Kyrgyzstan. I was surprised. Didn't think that was going to happen. And there isn't much for nightlife there. So Netflix was important. All right, so Netflix gets the data in, there's some operational data stuff at different events, and all those events go as JSON transaction into S3. So they've got semi-structured data that they push from that S3 buckets up into a variety of technologies depending on the consumer. So depending on the consumer, they're going to push it into Teradata, Redshift, Druid, which is built on the Presto stuff, or into Tableau data extracts. And so that's a lot of different places to push the data to. So some people are already doing the analysis on Redshift, some departments are doing the analysis on Teradata, some wanted to be cutting edge and use Druid, so people looking at recommendations and recommendations effectiveness, they want to use Druid, and then some folks just want to use Tableau data extract to speed that all up. Right? So it's got a variety of different fast storage locations, and then they use the core Hadoop libraries for data processing to make that data more valuable as they push it into storage. And then they actually use a couple of different data visualization technologies. They use Tableau on the top. They also use MicroStrategy, a bit of Revolution. And as they explore their data, they use Revolution, Python directly, Jupyter Notebooks, and Portal. So they've got a lot of different flavors, a lot of different technologies in here. And that's, that's okay, depending on who's the audience, how they've been getting the data in the past, how do they want the data in the future. There's a variety of different technologies here that is being leveraged. And then finally, I'm going to show you this NTT.Como company. Their architecture is here. This is the architecture that we went through on how do they want to move data through the stack, right? So they hit the blob storage. From the blob storage, they use SSIS, and they catalog some of the data, and they push it into SQL on the cloud, SQL DWH, and the data lake storage, depending on what you want to do. They also use some of SSAS, depending on the consumer of that. And they finally push that all the way up into HD Insight to expose some of this, as well as the SQL data warehouse, and use Tableau on top of that. So depending on the data use case, depending on the consumer of the data, it's hitting a variety of different storages before it goes out for analytics. Right? So it's a combination of technologies. And from that combination of technologies and these 4 different use cases I've shown you, there starts to emerge a pattern, some common theme. Folks are pre-processing data and doing some value add into a data lake. After that data gets into the data lake, they use a variety of server and serverless compute engines depending on the compute profile they're leveraging for production, right? So this type of sales use case, they expect a lot of heavy pre-processing to normalize options. If I'm a data engineer or if I'm a data scientist, I want more raw transactional data so I can use additional correlation and causation of my data to understand how the different parameters are at play to have the different outcomes that I want to understand some more scientifically. So there's also data preparation tools in here for value add analytics. So as I'm processing that data, I'm bringing in different bits and pieces, storing the data with those value adds, and doing analysis on top of that. They've got different compute engines leveraged for faster query, and because they use a variety of different technologies, they can actually support the volume, velocity, and variety of the analytical use cases that are thrown at them. It's not just let's just store all the objects and one type of query profile comes in. There's a variety of query profiles that come into your data lake. So you need to choose the right tool for the use case. Not all tools go through AppScale, or everything goes through Impala. There's a variety of tools depending on the use case and the scale of that use case. So if we break that down even further, then we're going to abstract this into modern data architecture. Right? You have raw data that is pushed into a compute for prep layer. So this is where you would have the Spark technologies, Kafka, and other data streams. And Tableau has connectors from the analytics tier into bits and pieces inside of that tier, right? Or you can leverage the API to create your own data set, or you can just go ahead and connect to JSON or text files directly, right? So you have compute for prep. The data lands to a spot, and then we prep it forward into semi-structured objects. So semi-structured objects are then stored. They're either stored in blob storage, or they're stored into Hive tables, or they're stored into Parquet. And then they're processed a bit forward to compute for query. So as analytics start to come in here, We are leveraging a compute for analytical query here to make things faster. Right? This is where you would really live most of the time for your production use cases will be in this tier. But as you're exploring those use cases, or you have some data scientists, you have some data engineers within your fold, they're going to want to touch the data at these more granular, more raw levels. And Tableau has connectors for that, but you're not necessarily going to have your production use case running over Hive, hitting JSON objects on a smaller cluster here that's really compute for prep. So you should understand what the different engines offer as far as compute for prep versus compute for query. So that's the abstraction of the modern data architecture. It's not necessarily big data, it's a modern data or flexible architecture. And so some things we've learned so far over the first half hour here is Tableau is a leader in big data analytics because we have those connectors to where people are storing the data. Self-service big data analytics isn't just turn it on and let the use cases flow. You need to think or have some logic about the data architecture or the compute for query technology you're going to leverage. And those live connectors that we have to those various different compute for query connectors is a big differentiator for us. You don't have to pre-process it into Tableau's architecture. It can be live query. Hyper is useful as a document or dashboard level acceleration layer on top of big data. I'm going to show you that in a couple of seconds here. Big data companies work with Tableau very strategically. You go to Valera's website, you go to AtScale's website, you go to Pylos, you go to a couple others. One of the first class citizens on there is how they work with Tableau, how they work with Tableau as a self-service platform. You'll see that quite a bit because you understand the value of data is at the top of the iceberg. Right? When we expose it, we make sense of it with Tableau. It's fun, it's interactive, we make insights, but what they deliver is further down the iceberg. So they understand that the value is delivered this way and expose their value through Tableau as an interactive layer. All right, so there's a big data framework that comes out of this, and that big data framework boils down into cold, warm, and hot. And so when we extract that a little bit, cold, that's the data lake. We're going to store anything and everything. We're going to store transactions, we're going to store fixed log files, we're going to store JSON, we're going to store CSV. We're going to store it because we feel there's value in storing it. And storage is cheap, right? I have over 1 terabyte of storage between these two devices and my computer. Oh, and I've got a little thing of SD cards that's another 1.5 terabytes of storage, right? Just like that. I carry 2.5 terabytes of storage everywhere I went, right? So I carry 2.5 terabytes of storage across 20 different countries, never got stopped by customs once, right? Like, it's silly how cheap storage is. Then there's the warm data. So we semi-process stuff forward into things that look and feel like objects inside of a canvas bar. Sales transactions, definition of a customer, inventory, things like that. Things that feel more like traditional data warehousing concepts. And then we have the hot tier. So we're going to pre-compute some aggregates that we know people are going to be asking for on a regular basis so we can have a faster query paradigm, that more interactive query paradigm as they're leveraging our workbook. And so how modern data platforms start to compare when we look at the size of data versus the performance of that data for analytical query, we start to put different technology families into different places on the scatter plot. Your Hadoop-centric technologies are more larger data sets, semi-prepared data into the Hive metastore. Relational databases can't quite handle that super large volume of data, but their data is almost always highly prepared for it. There's some aggregate tables as well. We have analytical databases, those MPPs, your Teradata's, your XSLs, your Snowflakes. They can handle pretty big data sets, and they make relational databasing and traditional data warehousing concepts really accelerate as you start to get into billions of records. They serve a really good purpose, but they start to buckle at certain query volumes or certain data volumes. And we also have Tableau data extracts in here. And what I find happening is two things. Hadoop creeps to the right. More and more every single year, different technologies, different processing engines, different storage formats, different ways of breaking up queries are developed inside of that core stack. So the Hadoop technology is creeping more and more to the right. They want to start to be more and more analytical with their query volumes, more and more focused towards the end users as opposed to people who are just writing code. Tableau is creeping in the other direction. We have technology that we're acquiring and we're leveraging that allows us to go more and more this way on the stack. And we're finding we're kind of meeting in the middle, and some of these traditional data warehousing and traditional database technology are getting crowded out of the marketplace a little bit in this paradigm. And you would see that in some of the use cases I showed, that you really didn't have a lot of traditional software in there as far as data warehousing would have been 5 to 10 years ago. There wasn't a lot of it. There was some of it, but there wasn't a lot of it. And so we've got the fourth state of big data, Tableau's Hyper. So I do want to show you how fast that starts to go. And so Hyper can be leveraged at any point for these different layers that we're connecting to speed up query within that tier instead of relying on that tier to do the query processing. So what does that start to look like? Well, I'm going to show you a quick demo. I'm going to start talking about the human consumable size of data, because I do care about showing you the demo. All right, so I'm going to clear my cache so you just want to understand that I'm not just hitting a cache here, and this will be live query. So I've got 2 different data files here of flights. I've got an aggregated file, and I've got a file of all the data. So inside the aggregated file, I've got 467 million records. And inside of the raw data file, let's go ahead and click on this, I've got 4.1 billion transactions. This is running just on my PC hardware here. This is running locally, and this is all running on Tableau's Hyper engine. But I've got 2 files, right? I've got one that's highly aggregated, 467 million records, about 10% of the parent, and the parent is 4.1 billion transactions. It was CSV data that I processed forward and put inside of I put it inside of Cloudera in a Hive table that I've extracted further from there. So yeah, it's kind of fun to play with this data. And so if I switch over now to a simple chart, it renders pretty much instantaneously on that aggregate data set. And do things analytically useful like rendering a Pareto chart on top of that 467 million records, pretty much instantaneously. You can see, what airports are flying the most. That query took half a second instead of, instantaneously. And from, Madrid or JFK, let's see where people are flying from JFK the most. Click on JFK, and now I can see they're mostly flying to Tel Aviv, and then I'm not sure what UAE is, and then Heathrow, Istanbul, Charles de Gaulle, etc. It's very quick. I can do that for any of these airports. Where are people flying from Miami? Where are people flying from Charles de Gaulle? Very quickly, I can see that information. And then I can present you with a series of dates here. Let's go ahead and see every single December, the number of flights dip. So people actually fly a little bit less in December. The big peak here is in March 2015. I'll go ahead and pick one of the troughs. Now I've got a map of all the origin airports for December 2014. I'm going to click back. I'll go into this peak here. So March 2015. I'm going to go ahead and search for England. That's where I used to live, so I always like going with England. They got one of the more popular airports in the world, London Heathrow. I go ahead and see down here, London Heathrow. It's usually the 2nd or 3rd largest passenger volume airport in the world. Go ahead and select Heathrow. See the different booking classes and the number of passengers in those booking classes for Heathrow for March 1st. And now I can pick one of these booking classes and see where they're flying to within that booking class. So this is live query on top of 4.1 billion records, and it's interactive. It's really, really fast. Yeah, I spent some time pre-processing this forward from the raw text files that I had, but it's analytically useful and it's instantaneous. Right? I can explore a lot of different query trees as I move into that. Right? I'm not bound to just one way of doing things. Right? I can go ahead and pick a new airport. I can go ahead and pick Dublin. And now I see all the different booking classes at Dublin, and then those booking classes, where are they flying? So it's instantaneous. They can take a look at all this stuff. So from Dublin and booking, and mostly going to JFK, and then mostly Las Vegas in that booking class. And this booking class here, mostly Orlando and Las Vegas. Right? So these folks are going on holiday to see Mickey Mouse. They go to Las Vegas. Whatever people do in Vegas, that's a personal story. It's really quite interesting to see that. UN, so plain tune again. People in that booking class is mostly holiday. It's instantaneous on top of the billing records. The booking class probably business, people going to Heathrow, Melbourne, Frankfurt, Bahrain, Charles de Gaulle, right? So it's probably a business class. If you easily infer that, if somebody flies too much. All right, so I always like showing Tableau at that level of speed, that level of fun. I'm going to go ahead and show you one more. See, I got 8 minutes. So I'll show you one more quick demo, and then we'll bring it on home. How about that? So one more quick demo. So because Tableau has all these different connectors, I can make analytics really, really fast at 4.1 billion records. I can also do that same type of query tree from the aggregate down to the raw level across the different technologies. This workbook I'm opening now, you can see I'm opening it live, so I'm not going to have anything like funky or cache. And the other one I cleared the cache just to make sure you saw how fast that hyperlink is. It's silly fast. Here I've got baseball teams, right? So baseball, you have a team, you have players, you have seasons. Got a great little natural hierarchy to show how this stuff works. And if I go to my data sources, I've got 4 data sources here. I've got Cloudera, Hadoop, Impala, which is my raw data store. I've got a SQL Server data warehouse, which is a semi-structured kind of data object store. I've got a JD's Excel file I downloaded from the internet, and I've got a Tableau data extract running locally on this machine. So I've got 4 different data sources, and I can use those all interactively with each other inside the Tableau interface. And this is just using action filters to move from one piece to the next. But I can do it all in one dashboard. So now I can come here and select this team. The Detroit Tigers. Now I see different Detroit Tigers players. This one here, probably one of our all-time favorites, Mr. Cecil Fielder. And now I can see Cecil Fielder's individual seasons as I go ahead and go over my phone to a Cloudera Hadoop Impala cluster that's in Tableau's infrastructure in Seattle. Right, so you can see I've fed that in. Right? And I'll just select multiple players, right? Go ahead and grab him and Mr. Mickey Kettleton, also one of my favorite players when I was a kid. And now I see their individual seasons, so there's that natural hierarchy. And I'm speaking all of these different languages inside of Tableau. It's really amazing. And we can even do the same thing from dashboard to dashboard to dashboard. Here I've got a dashboard built entirely off the Tableau extracts. If I didn't know geographically necessarily where baseball teams were, like I showed this internationally a lot, so this map really helped. Ooh, hey, what's that team down there in Florida? Okay, the Florida Marlins. Now I can pick the Florida Marlins. I can find it now on the scatter plot. Now I can drill down to the SQL server for the Florida Marlins. Now I'll go ahead and do another series of dashboards. Here's all the Florida Marlins players. I see a top right quadrant player here, probably Miggy. That's Moises Salou. Go ahead and select Moises Salou here, and then drill down further for his individual seasons. There was quite a few different Moises Salou seasons. I can see the different teams he played for and his different individual seasons. And I'm leaving some breadcrumbs for the folks here as I go through to show who I actually selected. And I can multi-select players too, if I want to grab all the more successful players. I can multi-select and push that forward on the where clause to the next data set. Real simple, right? I can have one dashboard that leverages all these technologies, or I can pre-process it aggressively, right? It just depends on what I'm trying to do. That flexibility of data architectures plus Tableau's action filters allows you to do some really amazing things, even when I have 2 trillion records to analyze. Right? I was able to go for this type of approach on the 2 trillion record use case that I was working out intelligently. Right? And there's no other way to do it, right? You had to think about how are people going to approach this? What are the hierarchies they're going to leverage? How are they going to navigate those hierarchies? Let's pre-process some high-value stuff in the hot tier. Let's go ahead and leave these objects that we thought were interesting in the warm tier, and then at that raw web log level, there might be certain transactions over certain days and certain periods I want to analyze, but I'm going to be highly targeted about what I'm going to go look at. So this is just a fantastic way to break that stuff down. All right, we're going to extract it all back into one single point before lunch here and do this. So we want to think about our users, the systems those users leverage, the logical flow of data within those systems, and then finally the underlying technology. The underlying technology is probably the most important piece to all of this. You need to understand the miners / data scientists of the world. They used to call them data miners when I was educated. Now they call them data scientists. We need to understand how analysts are leveraging the data, and then finally how web consumers are leveraging the data. Once we start to understand those profiles, we then can point them at appropriate systems to grab value. Statisticians, miners, scientists, they like code. They like using things like Python to do their ETL, and they create statistical data sets that then result in a semi-structured or structured object of some kind. From there, analysts can pick up a tool like Tableau Desktop, create workbooks, they can create data sources for others to leverage. As they get those aha moments of data or those aha moments of workbooks, they can publish those up to the Tableau server, allow web consumers to browse that, or web consumers to use our web authoring that Kevin showed during his workshop to answer some of their own questions. So this is a logical flow from the web consumers to the analysts to the miners, or a logical flow through the different data tiers. We've got the cold storage, we've got the warm storage, and we've got the hot storage. So we can ETL data forward to the warm storage and then subsets of ETL forward to the hot storage. So much like you saw me go from teams, I can interact with a different team, I can ask new questions and refine that search for the individual players, and then finally I get their individual seasonal stats where I can ask new questions, right? So I can jump through this hierarchy very quickly. And that's what I call the golden triangle of Tableau happening. Right? When you start to build use cases out in this manner, then the technology really becomes less important. Right? Yeah, I do have document draw level storage, I can connect to it. I can use my SQL to do engine of choice. I then can have those semi-structured data warehouse-like objects. I can use analytical structures like Parquet files or other analytical acceleration MPPs, or then finally use Tableau's Hyper to make it all flat. Right? This is not as consequential as understanding how data is going to flow this way, and then below that you start to map those technology pieces in there. How am I going to start my analysis? What does that flow of analysis look like as I'm going through this hierarchy? All right, so Tableau is definitely a leader in this big data revolution, this digital revolution. Our live connectors, the big data platform, allow us to be a differentiator. Our partners who strategically come and work with us. Tableau's deployment and data architecture flexibility allow us to go after these business value very quickly with an agile mindset and even things in the cloud data warehouses as well. Tableau is the default choice for big data digital analytics. So I got time for a few questions. If you're shy, you can always come up and see me directly. I know it was quick. There's a few more things I would have got to if I had a bit more time. Normally I can talk about this for like an hour and a half to 2 hours. So I hope you found some modicum of value out of that session. Any questions, or you can come up and see me if you want to go to lunch. Cheers. Thank you.